people call it a shidduch crisis. Like, I know Reuven Feinstein is like very anti calling it a crisis just for one simple thing, is like there's so many other things that Klal Yisrael is plagued with, and yet we don't label a crisis. I've never heard anybody calling it the cancer crisis, even though there's probably more people that are suffering with that machla than people that are actually still single.
You're not playing God. I think you need to trust the single a lot more. There needs to be a lot more trust. If you think someone's ready to get married, and again, if you don't think they're ready to get married, don't set them up. But if you do, then you got to trust their ability to determine what's good for them and what they want.
I actually think that, as a general thing, the system is actually really great, our system. I think it's the people who make it not so great sometimes.
There are some people that have Shadchanim on retainer. I heard recently someone is charging $11,000 for 3 months to guarantee you a date.
This episode is jam-packed with really different viewpoints as to what it's like to navigate being single. We hear perspectives from the guys and the gals, and you'll see how each conversation is really different, and that makes sense. Our goal is so we can all be more thoughtful and empathetic. You're getting a really raw, honest, vulnerable look into the perspectives, so please be kind in the comment section. We really want to hear what you have to say, so give us your feedback in the comments, whether you're single, parents of a single, or have a smart idea or something valuable to share. For the second part of this interview, I have a co-host, which I'm always excited about, and you'll see who it is. Please listen to the entire conversation because they each share such different perspectives on being single, Shadchanim, the dating system, and so much more. This episode is powered by the best place to get a car, Wheels to Lease, the comfiest men's clothing for dates, Twillery, the smartest software company in the world, BitBean, and the best books to get into Purim by Feldheim. This episode is in memory of Miriam Sarah Bas Yaakov Moshe and Shimon David ben Yaakov Shleima. Now, we looked at our stats and realized most people who watch or listen are not subscribed. It would mean the world to us, and you'd get first access to all of our content if you just hit that subscribe button. And I promise that we will do everything we can in order to bring you the best conversations and the best people in the world. Thank you so much. Here we go. I'm Yaakov Langer, and you're listening to Inspiration for the Nation. Thank you so much, Eli, Dovi, for coming. Can we start with your ages just to give context, or if you don't feel comfortable, it's all good.
I'm 35, almost 36 from Lakewood.
I'm 28.
Okay, cool. Fine. So we're going to have different perspectives, and I want to hear from both of you where you grew up, and then we'll talk about like your journey. So Eli, where did you grow up?
So I was born in Brooklyn. Second grade, my family moved to Lakewood in the summer and been living in Lakewood since.
Okay. Would you classify yourself as a Lakewood guy?
I would classify myself as someone who grew up in Lakewood pretty
Got
much.
it. Okay.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
Lakewood turned someone out to be.
Okay, that's fair. Okay, Dovi, how about you?
So I grew up in Teaneck, which is culturally more modern, I would say, but my father was a Rav, so my family kind of straddled that line of like, why you right to yeshivish. I was the youngest. My brothers had already gone to, I guess, more yeshivish institutions by the time I was, let's say, in middle school or high school. So kind of grew up in that confused middle space.
Interesting.
Not
Okay,
know
so
what was
you'll
up.
be able to give us context of like
Right.
both of the worlds over there. Okay, so in terms of your journeys, at what point did you guys start dating? Was it like a natural progression of getting into the system, and how did it go from there?
No, so I came back from Eretz Yisrael. I think I was about 21 and a half. I actually went to Yeshiva's Bar Yitzchak in Elizabeth because I wanted to avoid the whole freezer thing in BMG. And met a, my mother sent me to meet a bunch of Shadchanim and started from there.
Okay.
Dating a girl from Brooklyn and Baltimore. I don't even remember the whole thing, and just got into shidduchim. Didn't know anything, and guess I'm still learning.
Okay. Okay. Dovi, how about you?
Again, it was like a little bit of everything, a little bit more confusing space. Like I was in modern schools. My parents worked in modern camps. So girls were around and they existed, but it was still taboo. So I wasn't like in Lakewood where like nobody was involved in mixed activities or mixed institutions until after Eretz Yisrael. But at the same time, it was from a home perspective, it was clearly frowned upon. And my siblings were all in the shidduch system. So I think I was exposed to like kind of the gamut of it. But having said that, I got in, I think, when I came back from Eretz Yisrael, 1920, and it was just at a point where, like, in the frum world, there's only one avenue for relationships, and I think this is actually, not to get too heavy right away, but I think this was like one of the shortcomings of the frum dating Orthodox world we live in, is that there's a certain point where it's healthy for a guy to be in a relationship for his life, right? For his productivity, for his emotional needs, he should be in a relationship. And then there's another point in a guy's life where he's actually old enough, mature enough, responsible enough to take care of a family and have a wife and kids. And those don't always line up. So that interim space is a very challenging space for the frum community. And I don't think those lined up for me. So I started dating probably way too young, because there's no, like, you don't tell a guy to just go off to college and have like relationships that aren't in the context of.
And when you're saying
marriage.
dating too early, that was like shidduch dating, or
Yeah, I mean, setup dating. I
Right.
might not have all been through Shadchanim and
Right,
the Nasi
okay.
project.
Yeah,
but,
that's what I
like,
mean. Sorry, I meant
But it
setup.
was all marriage focused
Mhm.
dating, like from already like 1920. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. And Ellie, back to you. Through your journey from when you started dating at what age?
21.
21 to now, has it like always been the same approach to the system for you? Like, is it about, you said you started going to Shadchanim. Has that been what you've been doing, or
Yeah, primarily.
primarily?
Yeah, primarily I mean singles events, but definitely not meeting, doing like mingles and meeting, absolutely not.
Have you like leaned into like, oh, this is my, in quotes, shadchan, or person that I go to more often, or not necessarily?
So I can say comfortably, like by now, I'm probably have met more people who call themselves Shadchanim than girls I dated. That's just the reality. And
Well, that's what you say. Every girl you date at one
no,
point.
no, yeah, that's also true.
Right.
That's also true. Yeah, there's like the Ezra Connecto, they send out like streams, and like you'll find like these single girls like picking out your resume, like, oh, they're shotguns, so they get the list, But but basically, is you meet people, and some people make the effort to keep up with you, some you connect better with, and you just vibe better with. So that's, to me, it's like some words like way off target for me. Like in a way, like a shotgun also, if it doesn't connect with a person, like I'm not necessarily listening to your ideas or your advice, because a lot of them do offer that a lot. So there's always the ones that I do deal with more than others, and over time, sometimes they nowadays they come in spurts. Like I'll get like 15 resumes, and then for like a month and a half, you hear nothing, and then that's pretty much the dating scene up to now.
You personally, do you, from the system, or like going through that like matchmaking system, do you feel more like you're a person or you're a number, or it depends on who?
So I definitely feel like as you get older, the space definitely gets bigger, and you're definitely one of the crowd. I think that's natural. Most shadchanim definitely try to put like an emphasis on the fresher crowd coming straight back from seminary or yeshiva. But overall, it depends on how a shadchan deals with you. Some of them are actually menschlich, and they give that humanistic side to themselves, and they actually show that they care. And some of them just like randomly just like WhatsApp you 15 profiles, and like you've looked into them 3 years ago, and like they're all way off target and they know nothing about you. And so I guess you have a little of each. So like I don't feel like it's so much like you're a number, versus some people that are in the shidduch space do give you that vibe where you're just like, I'm just like just sending you, if nothing works out, I'm just gonna like move on to the next one.
Interesting. Dovi, how about you? What's your take on Shadchanim? And I'm sure you have a lot of Torah on this.
I'm nervous. I was on Shadchan's good side for the past week and a half. So
Better than me.
I don't think I've ever encountered a nefarious shadchan in my life. I've actually had very good, positive experiences with pretty much all of them. I can't think of an exception. I'm sure if I had time, I could think of an exception. I think they're all genuine, and they have always looked out for my best interests. Having said that, just like any industry where you are a marketplace, it's impossible for there not to be a conflict, right? If a real estate professional has two families looking for houses, let's say, and for one of them they said, what, as close to the shul as possible would be great, and the other one says we are not moving within anywhere that's more than 10 minutes away from the shul, just as an example. So if that person finds two houses and for the same price point, and one of them is farther away from the shul, they will offer the family that it wasn't as much of a big deal to move farther away from the shul, even though they clearly said that this house is better for them. So I think in a system where it is a marketplace, it is impossible for not to be a conflict of interest. So by definition, you are always a number. But I have always been impressed with the way Shadchan would go about that.
Is it fair to say that guys, at least in our culture, have an easier time with dating because there's maybe more option, there's not much of a clock? Or would you say the reverse, like, oh, wait, no, because so much effort and emphasis is on like, oh, what about the, single women out there? Like which side and it could be both. I'm curious.
I think that one of the things you had mentioned you wanted to speak about, in terms of managing expectations when you're starting dating, I think that is a big shortfall of the Jewish community in terms of guys, that from 5 to 20 or 24, whenever you start dating, all you hear at every Shabbos table is so many girls, so many girls, so many girls, not enough guys, not enough guys, not enough guys. And you as a guy go into this thinking like, wow, you are just going to have
A billion girls.
A billion girls, whatever you want.
You're sort of like brainwashed.
Right. And then when you start dating and you meet girls, you're like, pretty good, but what's next? I always heard my whole life that there's just endless amounts of girls. And on that side, it's unhealthy for guys to be hearing that their whole life. But also, I know myself at certain spots in my dating career, if you want to call it, and for sure my friends, when you are in, let's say, a drought, or when you've gotten a couple no's in a row from a girl, because you've been brainwashed your whole life to think that like guys just get whoever they want, you feel like a real loser because you're like, oh, this is cheated towards me and I still can't find anyone. So
the whole system is perfect and now I'm getting such big no's.
Right. I don't think that attitude, I think that's an attitude that has to change. We have to like stop talking that way in the frum community, that it's a guy's world. There's so many great girls and there's no good guys. Also, as like a single guy that's been at Shabbos tables where you just hear like, oh, there's just like no good guys. And you're like, hey, I'm over here. Like, like it's just like a very insulting thing to hear. I think that is something that has to change like ASAP.
Yeah, overall, I think it's a very, very bad way to categorize, human beings as fellow B'nai Yisrael. For sure, listen. The numbers you spoke to Mr. Pagro, like no one did the numbers in Klal Yisrael better than his, Project Nasi. So I definitely do feel like you're right. In our community, there are somehow more girls being born every year versus guys. But the way that we approach it and the way we like our mechanech, our kids in our homes growing up, you grow up with that expectation. And then when you get to the front line, sort of, and like, this is all like what you got. I totally agree with him on that. People call it a shidduch crisis. Like, I know Reuven Feinstein is like very anti calling it a crisis just for one simple thing, is like there's so many other things that Klal Yisrael is plagued with. And yet we don't label a crisis. I've never heard anybody calling it the cancer crisis, even though there's probably more people that are suffering with that machla than people that are actually still single. It's also the way how people look at shidduchim, how they look at older singles, and it just objectifies them in a very wrong way, and it takes a certain part of humaneness out of it, I think. And overall, it just is about numbers, figures, my status in the community, etc. Like, my father's got $3 million, so I get the better set of the girls versus the guy that his father's on food stamps that doesn't get so much. I just think that it's just a way of thinking. It's just not the way it's not what Yidden are supposed to be doing between yourselves. Like, we're supposed to love each other like one after, and it's not like I'm more elevated. I think sort of that label. Growing up, we were saying, there's a crisis, there's, too many girls, not enough guys, sort of puts in that mind that there's like some differentiation and that shouldn't really be there.
I totally resonate with what you both are saying. When I got married at 23, and I remember while I was dating for, in retrospect, not a long time, but like in it, I'm like, remember thinking like tons of anxiety, like, oh my gosh, I'll be single forever. And like, I was like, if you told me I would be single when I was 25, I'm like, oh, I'd lose it. I'd go crazy. I don't know. Like, and maybe it's just me personally. Do you have those feelings of like going out of your mind? Like, I really just want to like be with my partner already, or like, no, that's not the way you approach it.
I think every guy to an extent has a thought process like that. If you could promise me the same girl I would get today, like 3 years down the road, I don't think would be so upset with that. Like,
meaning, it's going to come, so you'll be okay.
I think the anxiety comes from like the unknown of whether or not it's actually gonna come. But like, Bachelor is great for a lot of people. I'm not gonna lie.
It doesn't get tiring. Like I maybe it's my personality. I'm not like
there's
so
a lot
fun.
out there. Like, I don't know. There's a lot to do.
Get tiring watching 12 hours of football with no responsibilities on Sunday.
I guess I don't like sports, so like maybe that's why. No, like I don't know. It just at a certain point, like listen. Why am I convincing you? Like no, it's good. It's okay. Enjoy. Like
no, I mean for good reasons. Our society is built on families and institutions, right? You go from your yeshiva into the institution of your marriage and your family. Yiddishkeit and growth in Yiddishkeit specifically tends to die for sure in singlehood and just in the lack of
there's nothing built for
There's
older singles.
Right. That's hard.
It's hard and it's not. I mean, like there has to be a balance struck between like being as sensitive and as accommodating to older, non-older, just singles in general, but at the same time recognizing that like the key to our tradition, the key to our lifestyle, and the key to our success is the fact that there is nothing built for singlehood, because there shouldn't be. I think that's a fair balance. Whenever we talk about like advocacy for singles and like singles communities, like we have to like maintain. And as a single, I say this, like we have to recognize that it is a b'diavad lifestyle, and it should remain a b'diavad lifestyle because that is the key to our whole Masorah. I just like on something you were saying about being a number. I think that like I watched a lot of last podcast when they talk about kind of fixing the system. And again, I don't believe in, let's say, that there is a system, let's say. I think the idea of fixing the system is something like Rabbanim, Rosh Yeshiva, and Shadchanim, right? I understand why they have to look at it as numbers. They have to, there's this many girls, there's this many guys, you have to get them all married from their perspective. But to use like a sports muscle, sometimes you got to switch from like a zone defense to a man-to-man defense. The numbers, the statistics, this and that, it doesn't matter when it's you. And like for your kid, let's say, that should be irrelevant. So like some of the solutions they were talking about, making sure guys get young. So like having all the Rosh Yeshiva, having all the Rabbanim advocate that guys get married younger and girls wait. It's good for guys to get married younger. It's important to recognize that on an individual level, if you are a person who's encouraged to get married young and kind of pushed on this conveyor belt that doesn't work for you, and as a result, you wake up 24, divorced, no career, having to pay child support in a world where you're confused about what you are and what's going on, all because you were part of this system that had to be fixed. The fact that it works for 98% or 99% of people is going to be totally irrelevant to you. So I think that's an important thing to, and again, it breaks down between people at the top who are trying to fix the system and people at the micro level who are like the shadchan dealing with you, your parent, have to be selfish and not worry about the system being fixed. If you need to wait till you're 24 to start dating, even though it is going to hurt the numbers in terms of population increase and there's going to be more girls than guys, like you can't think about that. That's irrelevant to you.
So I have a question for you, actually. Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Based on what you're saying, is that how does a parent know they should push their kid to be part of the system or getting married at 21 versus giving them the leeway to wait till 24, 25?
I mean, how does it know? There's like a myriad of factors. Why do you want to get married? Like, I don't know how into the weeds we want to get, but like if a guy is, like I said before, like kind of in my situation, let's say a guy's coming back from marriage to Israel, and like this is like a good time in his life. Like he needs a relationship, he needs interaction with girls for like very healthy reasons, but like he's just simply like he doesn't have a career, doesn't know what he wants to do. He's not ready. He's not even wired.
He's not settled on knowing where he wants to go with life.
He's not wired for like a family and right now.
I agree, but 98% of the community that does do the married when they're young don't necessarily have that worked out either. Listen, my younger brother, 21, just got married a couple months ago. First girl, straight off the bat, what does he know? He doesn't know finance, he doesn't know anything. They moved over to Israel. They finally have to learn budgeting. My sister-in-law had to get a better paying job and all that. How did she keep herself busy? She had an apartment with no windows and she had to like move up. She's going crazy because she works in an environment where there's no windows, no nothing, and she doesn't see daylight all day long. I'm saying is that's part of the learning curve. So some people will say like that's the beauty. You take two young people that absolutely know nothing about life, don't know anything about responsibility, and they just know that they have this human desire to get married and to have that human connection, and just they figure it out. It's not an easy road.
A lot of people figure it out, a lot of people don't.
Correct.
But also, hold on. You guys are also coming from very different worlds. Like there's some blending in it, but like you're coming from like Lakewood, like which maybe I'm a little more similar. Like boys are in that yeshiva, girls are in that yeshiva or school, whatever, and like there's no interaction. So you have more of a innocent, and then you have like there's more of a melding, and I think there's pros and cons to.
I agree and disagree. I agree. I would never like want to comment on another system, another culture, because like as an outsider, that's like totally inappropriate. But it does happen to be that the carbonos of that system make their way into my system. And
that is true. That is true. Most of them do evolve out.
Right.
I feel like I'm like the few left over.
You have you have better access to the 90%. I have unfortunately better access to the 10% that like it really didn't work for and didn't work for in a major way.
No, there's definitely value to what you're saying with the idea that sometimes people do get married before they really know where they want to go in life. That's one of the, I think Rav Gav gave this in Aish, and I thought it was awesome. There's three things that someone looks for in a shidduch, right? Or a date or spouse. One is you have to be attracted to them, right? You have to physically be attracted. Second thing is personality. You have to like each other's personality, or and vice versa. You cannot dislike someone's personality. And the third is like you have to have the right goals. So generally, if you're part of a certain system, you generally will have a lot of very similar goals, which is the beauty of it. But a lot of times when someone is 21, 20, 18, 23, it's very hard to know, like, where do you actually want to go with your life? Like our entire system, whether you're growing up in Teaneck, Baltimore, Lakewood, Brooklyn, Muncie, wherever it is, you were just going with it. And now it's like, wait. Tachlis, like what do you want to do with your life, whether career-wise or whatever, or what kind of person you want to marry? And like it's I could imagine it could lead to some issues when someone's getting married and then like 2 years in they're like, wait, I don't know if that's me, or you're really being who you are. So
No, so I believe there is a number, like you're saying, in every system that'll always fall out. Like, it works for 94%, the other 6%, that's left over, it will, it didn't work for them. I get that. But even like in the workforce, not everybody gets a job what they know. I think that's also
right.
the job market is so tough right now. A lot of people feel like they can only go into a job or go into an interview. They know for sure they want to do that job. I have a big WhatsApp status. People always ask me, "Can you help me find a job? Help me find a job." They don't even know what job they want to get. And sometimes you don't. Like I didn't know what kind of job. I started my first job. I was working in a warehouse shipping out clothing, and then somehow I ended up in a medical supply company running their warehouse, and then I ended up in accounts payables and receivables, and now I'm working for a nursing, a company that services nursing homes, doing back end office work in accounts payables. I think most people that go into work also don't have a clear idea. You just go work, and if it doesn't work out, you go, you do the grind again. You send out your resume, you go to recruiters, you go to expos, and you try a different job. It might help some people to figure out what for sure they don't want to do. Sometimes, playing the process of elimination, saying like, I for sure don't want to be a plumber. I don't want to be an electrician. I don't want to be the guy sitting on, in construction, waking up at 5 in the morning and like being on a job site by 6:30 in the morning, the freezing cold, boiling hot, and etc. But, you don't have the temperament to sit behind the computer all day long. But I think even like it works the same way in your career. Sometimes even places where you live, many people get married. They think a certain community is good for them, and as a kid start growing up, they see it's not meant for them, and they have to like pick themselves up, move their whole life around. That's part of it. A big part. I think the majority of Klal Yisrael actually does that. Majority of the world, no one has everything so solidified. There are some people maybe they knew right away. Oh, I'm becoming a podcaster, so I'm going to open up a podcast. Like not everyone has that. Some people know, I'm for sure going to be a musician, or that guy that's crazy talented, with numbers, and he knows he's going to be an actuary. Yes, we do have a lot of those, artists that we know they have a crazy talent, and we know that's where they're going to pursue. But most people just figure it out. That's just how the world works.
I'm not arguing again. I'm not
Right,
arguing
right.
on the 94%, and I'm not arguing for system changes or suggestions to those systems. I think it's important for individuals to be cognizant of the fact, like if you are a 20-year-old BMG guy or 22-year-old BMG guy, and the Kol Koreh came out that everyone has to start dating at 21 now, like I think it's important to you to recognize, and your parents to recognize, that that is a system fix coming down from the top for people who are trying to accommodate everyone. For you, like you can't be like, well, my Rosh Hashiva was trying to fix the system, so even though I'm not ready to date, I'm not ready to get married, like you got to jump in,
I
because
mean, you got to be vocal enough to know that it's not for me.
not vocal, just for you. Like there has to be like a deep recognition for the difference between fixing a system and individuals servicing their own needs.
We'll be right back to this week's episode, but first, for over 35 years, Wheels to Lease has been revolutionizing the car buying experience. No high-pressure sales, no hidden fees, and no last-minute surprises. Just honest, upfront pricing and a seamless, stress-free process delivered straight to your door. Whether you're looking to buy, finance, or lease a new or used vehicle, they offer best deals on any make and model, anytime. Their white glove service means you can complete everything over the phone. No showroom visits and no wasted time. We've all experienced waiting in a back office, and this is not the experience at all. Just tell them what you need, and they'll handle all the details from choosing a vehicle to door-to-door delivery, so you can drive off with exactly what you want, hassle-free. And Wheels to Lease takes pride in integrity, fairness, and making customers happy. Don't waste time. Call them today and see why families have trusted them for decades. You could call or text 718-871-8715. That's 718-871-8715. Or send an email to inspire@wheelstolease.com. Or you can go to wheelstolease.com/inspire, and they'll be sure to take care of you. You can also simply tap the link in the show notes and WhatsApp Sal to take care of you. So go ahead and reach out today, because they are the best. Now, before we jump back into the episode, Purim is coming, and it's the perfect time to dive into the deeper meaning of the Megillah. And that's why our L'chaim Book Club is giving you 10% off all Feldheim books mentioned here. Just use the code INSPIRE at feldheim.com to get 10% off your order. So first off, we have Out of the Fire. Out of Fire brings Rav Moshe Weinberger's powerful insights on Megillas Esther, showing how Purim teaches us to see beneath the surface. I read a sefer on Pesach, and this one is just as incredible. Now, for the kids out there, In the Gates of the Palace by Genendel Kron makes the Purim story come alive for kids with stunning illustrations and timeless wisdom from Chazal. We grew up on this book in the Langer home, and Mir Tashem, my kids will grow up on it. It's one of those books that are a staple in a Jewish home. And of course, Inside Purim by Rabbi Aryeh Pinchas Streikoff uncovers layers of depth in the Megillah you've never known existed. Someone actually came into the studio, they saw this book, and they're like, can I have it? I'm like, actually, I need it for this ad read, but also, I'm going to read this. There's really nothing like learning about a yontif before the day is actually here. So don't delay. Get informed with Feldheim's best books and Sfarim. And if you want to win free books, join our L'chaim Book Club, where we do exciting giveaways. You'll use a link in the show notes to join the club. Now back to this week's episode. Overall, would you guys say that you're happy with the system? Again, there's no wrong answer, just your personal opinion about it.
So, I mean, personally, I don't know if I'm in the system you're talking about. I move in and out of every system. I think I'm a big believer in that the system does not exist. What we refer to as the shidduch system is a boogeyman for us to blame our problems on. And I'll give you an example, like something I always found, like growing up out here, again, at Shabbos, when people are complaining about the system, like something coming from, let's say, a more culturally modern perspective, like being around those people. Anytime someone either not from or more modern, not like exposed to Lakewood or yeshivish or more traditional shidduch system would complain, like, it's crazy. Like, they make these resumes and they put someone on a piece of paper. How could you judge? It's a human being. It's not a piece of paper. I think the shidduch resume is the greatest, most functional logistical invention in modern dating history. I don't think that there are 15 angry Shadchanim sitting in a basement making rules, saying everyone has to have a resume, everyone has to do this on the first date, everyone has to do this on the second date. You're responding to what is going on, what's happening. Amal, there was a shadchan in a shtetl, and we all existed in our own bungalow colonies. So when she read the butcher's kid to the baker's daughter, like, she knew the family, she knew what was going on. Now with globalization, what happened? Shadchan calls to read me a girl. I say, like, I've never heard of this girl. Do you know, like, what her shul was growing up? So he says, yeah, I went to this shul. Oh, my father's friends with the Rav there. I'll call him. Then she goes to the next guy and says, like, I don't recognize that shul. You know how else I know her? Well, she had some brothers that were in this yeshiva. She went to these camps, and you want to try to get a sense of her hashkafically while she was part of these institutions. And you were saying, like, 15, like, you were gathering all this information, just like wasn't convenient. It would be a great idea. Let's put all the information down on one piece of paper. Every time I suggest this girl to a guy, I'll just give him all this information. It evolved out of need. And I think that's true with everything in the shidduch system. References, calls, this and that protocol. There is no system. Anytime someone's yelling at the system, you're essentially yelling at yourself, because you are part of that system that created these needs. That's how I feel about the system.
Okay, good answer.
Listen, I'm not here to take away terminology that's already universally accepted, but you're right. Just blaming anything in life that really you can't do anything about is really just kind of wasteless. The only thing I think a lot of people have an issue with, resumes, as you said, is more that people start judging people based off the resume. Which don't get me wrong, a resume is a very practical tool. It does help, Shadchanim be able to scale the ability of writing people. It makes sense. I don't think it's really going anywhere unless AI is just going to feed everyone's profiles. But in essence, that's the same version of a resume. But ultimately, it's there to serve a purpose. I think some people use that more as like their definition guide of, will I go out with this girl or a guy, just based off, I saw he went to elementary school. Like, yeah, I had this. Someone was looking into me. And like, why did you go to Satmar Cheder in Lakewood? I think I know my family moved in 1997 to Lakewood. Why my parents sent me to the elementary school? Is it really relevant to where I am now in life? I was saying sometimes people, like, they'll take a resume, look at one specific detail, her sister-in-law went to that seminary, so I'm not gonna go out with this girl. Like, it doesn't, like, sometimes we just nitpick off these stupidities, which I think is what is starting to frustrate Shadchanim about the fact that maybe you should get rid of resumes. But ultimately, it is a tool. But if you abuse the tool, then it becomes a problem. Same thing as you want to say the shidduch system is rigid. Listen, every single person, like you said earlier in the beginning of the podcast, our Torah environment isn't geared for people staying single, and it shouldn't be, which I agree. But the longer you're in what you want to call the system, it does start working against you. People always come up with ideas how to innovate and how to make it better, and it is. And for those that that the system works, they go 21, you get married right away, and you move on with life. That's great. Like, the efficiency of what we're doing, to improve the shidduch system makes sense. But when you're an older single and you stay, you keep getting older in that system, it just ends up working against you. So I understand where the frustration lies, but it's nothing to do with the system.
The only thing I take issue with what you're saying, and I totally understand that, like, people do get judged based off a piece of paper. The question always comes down to alternative. People are very quick to criticize a person, a system, a protocol without offering an alternative. Like, when people criticize, like, having resumes and judging people off of pieces of papers, in their mind, the alternative is some deep way of being able to evaluate a person, which doesn't exist. The alternative to a resume is a non-resume. It's just a name.
No, I agree. It should be
Yeah.
there. I just think that people have to learn that you can't make certain decisions just from a resume alone. You have to do some installs. You have to do some research.
Right.
Just to take a person's resume and just like decide to not consider the idea because someone actually spent time and actually thought that it would make sense. I'm not talking about someone who's you do have this kind of shadchanim to sit there like mass sending you just 100 profiles, which is also counterintuitive. I don't think shadchanim should be sending singles way too many profiles because it just feeds to that leader mentality that there's always a better one afterwards. I don't think that's a great idea.
I agree and disagree. Like I think that like that was an appropriate like attitude 50 years ago. Like the options are there now for us. I think it's a big thing in like certain worlds that like we have to be more like people are like we'll be more focused because if there's a lack of optionality, it will funnel people into making more intentional decisions and being married and getting married quicker and healthier and all these things. But like the fact that like a shadchan, like I think some of the shadchanim that you had on said like, well, we're going to send one at a time because we'll make a good intentional decision about this person. And if you have too many options, it's unhealthy. I agree. But the options are there. I hate to break it to everyone. Like in this world and today with Instagram and TikTok and events and like just living in the world, the options are whether you send those resumes or not, we will, I promise you, as a guy, we will find them. So like you have to kind of acknowledge what's going on in the world and
yeah, but you said earlier that even in the other parts of the world and other societies and cultures, they're going back to the matchmaker. So there's obviously
for individuals.
But there's certain aspects where you want that individuality. So the Shadchanim are saying is instead of me presenting you 3 at a time, listen, I don't believe Shadchanim should sit there over scrutinizing why you're saying no to a girl when you give when they take a profile. But I don't think Shadchanim should be sending more than 2-3 profiles at once. Well, what's the point?
I mean,
I know there's other things out there. There's the whole internet out there. But at the end of the day, right now, this is 3 girls, 3 profiles that I thought about. I know her a little bit. I did some research on her background. It makes sense. That makes sense for you. Like I spoke to you, that kind of thing. And just look into those 3. Why or just one at a time? When you just have like 50 on the table, you'll never be able to. You're not objectively actually putting in the due diligence to actually look into that person that's being presented.
As someone who like it's just like
I think you could both be right. And
right.
Different perspectives and different personalities.
Yeah, it's different personalities, but like there is one shadchan that I really appreciate that like because she takes herself out of it. She says, I don't have chachma, I don't play God. She has a database of girls, a database of guys, and a WhatsApp broadcast list. Anytime she gets one girl resume, sends it to every guy. Anytime she has one
if
guy.
If I touch it up, you're more from the system of like you having more choice in it, and you appreciate that. Well, you're more of the system of like, I don't really know how to navigate it. Help guide me through it. So that's why for you,
right? But
it's better. Meaning for you personally,
I think my point is that when you talk to a shadchan from the more yeshivish world, whether it's not a Lakewood, it could be Muncie or Flatbush or whatever, they would respond to me like, you only have that attitude because you are in a more modern world with TikTok, Instagram, and you see all those options. And I think they're deluding themselves. Like people in their world see those options.
Same here.
Also. Yeah.
I mean, I have social media. I'm not gonna not put.
What's crazy is I don't know, but like I can imagine the women's perspective based off just even what we're saying, even with the 2 different, like it's such a different game. I believe like with them, like it's a completely
of course because they're different people. They are playing a different sport.
Yeah, no.
There are always like the sought after girls in shidduchim, and they are girls with tons of options. And in my experience with, let's say those girls, not interpersonally, but like having been set up with them, yes, no, whatever, I think girls with options behave much more entitled and lack of midos tovos than guys with options.
Yeah, but I don't think in the long term it really benefits them. Ultimately, you are who you are, and even after a while, you're in the shidduch system long enough.
No, yeah,
it actually backfires on you. I don't think that really is going to benefit you. Like all those. You want to say girls that feel entitled and they get older, they come from the more
it works
better backgrounds, and they have and then they're getting the better ideas. Eventually, those all run amok too. Like if you're not actually settling it down, you're not being honest with yourself in the shidduch world. It's not going to really work to your benefit.
I think he's right. I mean, in the long, you don't know, but like in a marriage, if someone's like not a nice, like I said, back to where it drives, like it's not nice, then doesn't really work out.
Yeah, no, like it's very good that you were the the cool guy in yeshiva, and you were the life of the party. But at the end of the day, it's like if you don't have good midos to actually what it takes to actually build a normal proper home, it will affect you. Or you're dating, and the same thing with girls. Like if you're gonna come in and be like snobby or feeling entitled, or like everything is is coming to you, even though there's no reason why you should deserve it, it will affect you. There was just one thing I wanted to say was about I feel a lot of times Shadchanim, they feel like they have the solution to what you want to call the shidduch problem, and people have to realize that that comes from a place where I come as kaichi v'aitzim yadi. To think that you're the one that can solve the problem. I don't think most big people out there that actually came up with innovations and that actually changed the world never actually thought that they're actually solving the world's problems. They were just trying to, work on something, and they came across something that actually solved, a very big problem. Like, I don't think the person who came up with the polio vaccine was trying to save the world from like all dying out, but versus he came across a medicine that somehow, was healing polio. And we have a problem in our, in our shidduch system. You want to see it's broken, not broken. End of the day is innovation is definitely going to help us lower down those numbers. And you just have to always look at it like you're doing your part. When you're writing shidduchim, should it be you're coming up with a better app, or you're coming up with a better concept of how we should do singles events, or better methods how to do speed dating, whatever that is. Just know that you're contributing, and obviously not everything that you're going to come up with is going to fit for every type of person. So sometimes when you come to the Shadchanim and they feel like they know everything, or just because this is what they feel like works in life is going to be, the way it has to be. That's wrong. And we all have to humble ourselves, and the ones that are actually humble are the ones that actually accomplish a lot.
I do think that like all these conversations focus around a lot of like unfortunate shadchan blaming, because it's like the only address.
I'm not looking to blame. I'm just saying the reality. There's and then I rely on them for shidduchim, and you get that vibe from them. Some they don't necessarily even say it outright. They just have mentality. Like there's a certain shadchan has like a WhatsApp group. She sends her profiles. If you like it, you say yeah. So I once saw a profile. I send it to her, and she was like, I can't read that. I was like, why not? Well, she's like, you're 34, and she's 26, and I think the gap is too much. I was like, did you ask the girl, or are you just saying that because because that doesn't work for me? Like, I can't be the one writing it. I was like, why are you playing God in this scenario? Like, ask her. She asked the girl. The girl was not at all had a problem with the age. She had maybe a different issue with me, which that I understood and respected. But at the end of the day, it's these kind of nuances where, like, just because I've been doing shidduchim for 20 years and this is what always works, so why should I bother trying? Maybe if you get out of that little comfort zone, you'll be surprised that sometimes there are people that meet up in ways that you don't expect, or what you think does work or doesn't work.
But don't you think if a shadchan read you a shidduch that was so off and so not what you wanted, and so not what you had spoken to that shadchan about when you had articulated what you were looking for, you would have less respect for that shadchan and be less inclined to take another suggestion from them?
I wouldn't judge off one suggestion, but if they
my point is that shadchan that didn't want to read that probably might have thought that was a good reason for them. Meaning you come to a shadchan and say like,
but that's making an assumption without. No, I asked her straight out, like, did you actually ask her? Did you have this conversation with her?
Yeah, but
about
she's
the age
not
gap?
reading it because she doesn't want that girl to.
You can ask a girl, would you be comfortable with going out with someone over a certain age? Like, you don't even have that knowledge. She's running a WhatsApp group with profiles. So all she's just really doing is putting out profiles. She doesn't really know anybody.
Dovi, what was your point? You're about to say a point about the system.
No, the two things. First of all, on that point is like, I understand why a shadchan wouldn't want to read a shidduch, because she has her reputation with, let's say, that girl. If she says like, I don't want to read to that girl because she's going to respect me less for setting you up with Dovi when he's so out of what you're looking for. So I understand that. But I think that a lot of the
blame,
comes to Shadchanim when, in the end of the day, as a single person who's dated a lot of girls in a lot of different systems and been friends with a lot of people, probably like 99% of what you can do to get married and increase your chances of finding someone just like lies with you. Like,
correct,
becoming a person who is an attractive person to the person you want, essentially. Like,
it's so much easier to blame the shadchan.
But blaming doesn't.
It's a lot easier.
But I agree, blaming doesn't get you anywhere.
A lot of clicks, but in the end of the day, like,
it's up to you.
Yeah, if you have a boss and you start blaming it on your coworker,
I think it's a great exercise. Also, like, when I started dating, I very much thought I wanted like a girl in Montclair vest ordering $8 coffees from Toddy's every day, and then I put myself through that exercise. I said, well, then I need to become that guy, and I said like, I need to go to this law school and become this. And then when I started doing that, I was like, wow, I hate myself now. Maybe I don't want that girl. And that's the exercise you have to go through and it's not easy, and it's annoying, and it's hard work, but it's much more effective than yelling at a inexistent system or a shadchan that like is just trying their best to help you.
No, I agree. I don't think blaming ever solves anything. So like, 100%. I'm not blaming. I'm just seeing my perspective. I feel like people should be more open, side on the single side, and also on the shadchanim side. If you obviously had a conversation with the single, I can hear it, so you don't want to read it. Makes sense. But if you never had a conversation with her about specific nuance, then you can ask her. Nothing's gonna hurt if you ask the girl a question. I think she'll respect you for coming to her before you actually tried setting them up, saying, "Would I be comfortable with something?" I think just the opposite. It's like maybe speaking out more, getting in a better idea.
Do you guys think that this is a pro or a con? And let me paint it for you. generally in our system, when someone starts dating, like you don't, yes, you've seen your parents, but like you don't really know what marriage is about. So a lot of people go into it and they look for certain qualities when they're dating. And then when they're married, it's like, oh, I should have like cared more about, is this person patient? But like when you're dating, you're like, who cares about that? You know, like certain attributes that like you're not even mature enough or really know what it really takes to make a successful marriage. But as you get older, and I'm sure you guys have a lot of friends that are married, you start like seeing it more because like, oh, these are your peers, and you're seeing like, I'm sure you have, you have the friends you're like, I don't want my marriage to be like that. And some of you are like, I do want my marriage. Like I like what they're having. Do you think that makes it more complicated for you? And like in quotes, you get pickier as you get older, or the opposite? Like, no, this is helping you make a more refined decision with who you're going to marry.
I feel strongly that as you see more relationships and get older, and I get exposed to what works and what doesn't work, a lot of like what you thought was important when you're 21 and 22, it just becomes so irrelevant. Like, for example, Hashkafa compatibility. I think there is nothing more overrated in the entire from dating world than Hashkafa compatibility. Not necessarily like religious compatibility. I get to an extent, like you guys got to both be keeping Shabbos or not keeping Shabbos. But like,
give me a practical example. It could be a bad example.
I don't know. This is like obviously hyperbolic, but like marriage. I'm not married, so I'm not one to talk. But like based on the marriages and good and bad ones I've been exposed to, it's a lot more about like who's going to get the dry cleaning and who's going to do carpool versus like if you're both saying Halal on Yom Ha'atzmaut or you're both not saying Halal on Yom Ha'atzmaut.
Right.
We both know the reality is like if you have 4 kids, you're probably not making it on time to minyan. You're definitely not staying for Halal either way. So like these little minutia of what she's going to wear, how long, this and that, how much is she going to cover her, like these things are so important when you're 2021 and you're like, you think it's going to make or break your relationship. And I was the first one to think that. And then as I got exposed to like more of my friends' marriages, my siblings' marriages, I could not think of anything less relevant to a happy relationship than Hashkafa compatibility.
Interesting.
I totally agree. I never really thought Hashkafa ultimately in the long term of marriage actually really plays itself out. I think values do. Like you both have to value the same things. But let's be realistic. 2 years ago I might have been doing A, and now I'm not doing it. Things will evolve even as you get married. I want a guy that's going to learn daven 3 times a day and learn 2 hours a day. But then realistically, when he has to support the family and you're home with 4 kids, is it really going to bother you so much that he doesn't show up to 3 times a day minimum while he has to go travel for an hour and a half to commute every single day?
Someone married, you should be davening 3 times a day. I just want to make that.
I'm not saying that.
But I understand what you're saying.
The point being is that the hashkafa aspect of that will change when your needs change as well. Like your hashkafa is based on where you're holding in life at the moment. Versus values is what you find important. What your machshav. Am I machshav that gadol, not that gadol? Am I machshav halal yom etzmaut, like he said, or not? I can hear that's a very strong sentiment. Or yes, have a TV in the home, not have a TV in the home. That actually does make sense. Or no movies, yes movies. I hear it. Maybe get older. So I
think even though like I hate to disagree with you. Actually, I don't care. Disagree with you.
You can hate me and disagree with me.
But
I love to disagree with you.
But I even think like that's what I thought I would think. Maybe like, oh, okay, so like that Tilumi versus Haredi, I won't care about, but like movies in the home would be the biggest deal. I think as you get older, even that stuff like tends to fall away. Like values and midos, for lack of a better term.
I think it depends. It depends on the people and like depends on how it's not stubborn in a bad way. Stubborn someone is, it could cause a rift. It depends. But like whoever's more strong-minded in whatever the areas, they're usually going to win. There's a lot more to this episode, and this is the last ad break in middle. But when it comes to dating, the last thing you want to worry about is uncomfortable clothing. And that's why Twillery is the ultimate game changer. Whether you're grabbing dinner, playing games at Dave & Buster's, or awkwardly sitting in a hotel lobby after a setup, Twillery keeps you looking sharp and feeling at ease. Their pants, stylish, flexible, and perfect for anything from a casual first date to meeting the parents. Their suits, so comfortable, you won't be shifting around uncomfortably when the conversation stalls. And their shirts and polos, breathable, wrinkle-free, and ready for even the most intense escape the room challenge. Twillery gives you confidence without the stiff, uncomfortable feel of traditional dress clothes. Plus, they're machine washable because, let's be honest, dating is already complicated enough. Oh, and the best part, you'll actually look your best, so go ahead and try it out. Get $18 off your first order of $139 or more at Twillery.com with the code word, you guessed it, INSPIRE, because looking great should never mean feeling uncomfortable. Now, This concept of finding the right one isn't just for dating, it's for your business too. Too many companies struggle with off-the-shelf software that doesn't quite fit, leading to inefficiencies, frustration, and lost opportunities. Bitbean is like the perfect matchmaker for your business, designing custom software solutions tailored to your exact needs. Whether you're in real estate, healthcare, finance, Bitbean helps you stop settling for good enough and start operating at peak efficiency. No more awkward workarounds, just seamless, scalable, and smart solutions that grow with you. Take a real estate management. Juggling leases, maintenance, and payments can be a nightmare. Bitbean builds a platform that automates workflows, saving hours of manual work and boosting profits. Because when you find the right one, everything just works. No more stress, no more inefficiencies, just a perfect fit for your business. Visit bitbean.com today and see what the magic's all about. Now back to our conversation.
It's funny because like when I was dating and I went back to Eretz Yisrael for Shavuos, and I remember I was talking to my Rabbi Jarish. Great, he's awesome, and he asked me one thing about the girl I was dating, who is my wife, and he's like, "Is she nice?" And I'm like, I remember like being so cliche, like shkayach, but I think it's in par with what you guys are saying in terms of if you're gonna get married to someone who's a team player, like. Are they nice? Are they willing to give in? Are you willing to give in? You're on the same team, so it doesn't make a difference. All these little things, it does, play out who we are. But in the big scheme of things, if you have someone who's with you and you're on the same team, and okay, this is more valuable to me, that's more valuable to, like, that's really, the midah that like really makes the difference. So,
Right. Was she nice?
Yeah, very nice. She's very nice.
She still is.
Yeah, she's
Yeah,
great.
it's funny, like you're saying that, because I think when you start dating, you don't even notice that when you're on dates. Like,
No,
when
it's not like something
I know.
you're
like,
necessarily.
I'll give an example.
And also, everyone's on the best behavior when they're on dates. Okay,
Correct, correct.
Myself
You
included.
clearly
Like,
never dated
you're the
me.
nicest. That's funny.
You're saying a date night, you're still being the nicest.
Oh my god, it was like a charade. I think I'm a nice person, but like I'm not charade, but like I believe everyone's on like their. No, besides Dovi Neuburger, but like
No, I mean, I'm curious because again, another thing I heard in the first podcast, like we got to be coaching people, like not to talk about how drunk they got at the Rebbe Suda, and her not to talk about that she has a bad relationship with her sibling. I'm like,
But I think younger on that would. I mean, at least by me, I once told a girl that when I started dating, that I used to go like take hitches with the Yeshuva Banim guys in Israel to go to, we used to go to Shechem illegally. And that was like a deal breaker. It's like, I'm done. Like I said, I can't even say my fun stories that happened to me in Israel. Like,
but that's a good thing because
I no, 100%.
you know what I'm saying.
100%.
You wouldn't want to.
I think there's a balance. I mean, like two people, if you were exposed to all the skeletons in someone's closet, no one would ever get married.
Right.
From
No,
day
for
one.
sure.
There has to be a build, but like I don't know how much we should be like curbing that date experience. Like maybe not on a first date, you don't tell them that you got smashed at your Rebbe's house on Purim, but like that's something that maybe should come up before you get engaged.
That you got smashed? Like, you think the Rebbe's going to come to the chasana, like under the chuppah and say, he got drunk at my house?
No, I'm just saying, like, be vulnerable, be honest. Like, again, like we're talking about different systems. They're obviously talking about a system where romance and like knowledge of the other person is built totally after marriage. This is just like and again, I'm not gonna like judge another system that I'm not a part of. Like, it probably works great, but that it has to, like, in a system where
Even I won't judge it. Like, it is what it is. Like, nothing I can say. I grew up in Lakewood. I don't think I'm like the typical Lakewood kid anymore. And
You're wearing a blue shirt, so clearly.
I know. I should have put on the white shirt. Just like with my hat. But
I walked in here, I was like, they got another Chavetz Chaim guy in this podcast.
That's it. No, but I want to say back to what I was saying before is like the longer you start dating, you notice things. Like I was dating a girl Muncie a couple months ago, and we went out like 4 times.
Muncie.
Oh, shout out to Muncie. And like it wasn't really going anywhere. And like emotionally, I didn't feel like it was developing anywhere. Like whatever. And we had a couple of like real tough conversations on the 4th date. So I decided for the 5th date, I'm gonna go do something fun. So like, okay, we'll go to after she came home from work. Whatever. I decided we'll go to Palisades. I'll go to Dave and Buster's. We pull up to the Palisades, and lo and behold, Dave and Buster's went out of business. So I don't know. We walked around. We found
All of them or just that one?
that one in the Palisades Mall.
Sure.
So like
Wait,
whatever.
I was at Dave & Buster's last week.
No,
don't
he
know.
said just that one.
The
As
one
in the one Palisades Mall?
Oh, the one in
really?
Palisades, it was closed. I don't know. It wasn't open when I was there. So I had
Maybe
no
they
choice.
closed it for you.
I went. I thought it would close. I went out of business. It was literally. It was like 7 o'clock, and it was like dark. It was nothing. Gates down, whatever you want to call it. So whatever. I walked around, and we found this like place where you do like those escape rooms. So you don't want to do escape room. What?
5 wits next to Mike's.
Yeah. So basically, I take.
I'm throwing out tidbits for the guys dating. This
Yeah,
is like
yeah.
it should be useful.
So you ask, you want to do it? Sure. We go in there. They have like 4. You have to first fill out a whole form online, whatever, and then they give you 4 tracks, 4 different like type of story scenes, and you go in there and I'm in there with the girl, and we're trying to figure out the things, and like I'm trying to work with her, and she's just like going out on her own and like doing stuff. and I was like trying to we're in this together. Let's just try to figure this out. And it just wasn't happening. So whatever, eventually we figured out how to get out. We get out. I go to the burger place. What's the name of that place? Mike's.
Yes.
And then we had dinner, and then I dropped off. I realized, because you roughly gave me that realization, and it's probably only something I realized because I've been dating long enough, is that if I'm with my wife in a situation and she's just out on her own doing her own thing, and we're not working together as a team, this is never going to work. So somehow an escape room turned for me now to realize.
But did you break up with a girl because of her lack of collaboration in the escape room?
Yes, because that's a key component to marriage, and if you don't have that, then what are we doing here? I wasn't emotionally. It wasn't like it was emotionally anywhere. It wasn't going anywhere. I didn't feel like it was. But yeah, 100%. Why wouldn't I? That's because you're
No, I hear you. I'm just gonna avoid escape the rooms because I never thought of that.
You can't avoid every scenario in life.
I've definitely broken up with girls because of my experiences with them in escape the rooms, but never because they weren't collaborative enough. Just because they weren't good enough.
What do you guys want more of the world to know about in your positions, respectively? Dovi, you being 28 from your matzah, Eli, you being 35, almost 36 in your matzah. What should more people know? The do's, the don'ts.
Well, I think that not just Shadchanim, people setting other people up, right? You're not playing God. I think you need to trust the single a lot more. There needs to be a lot more trust. If you think someone's ready to get married, and again, if you don't think they're ready to get married, don't set them up. But if you do, then you got to trust their ability to determine what's good for them and what they want. I, as someone who grew up in very Rabbanish home and have definitely moved culturally to the left of that of where my family and my house is, found a lot of frustration with just this isn't what you actually want. This isn't matim for your family. This is a stage you're going through. It's actually so funny. It was always so ironic to me that Shadchanim are variant to you always have to give a reason, which is another. I don't believe that. I don't think you should always give a reason. I think in most cases the reasons are totally irrelevant and are actually harmful. We can talk about that afterwards. But whenever I would say no, a Shadchan would say, well, why? And I'd say, it's not relevant. I'd say no, you have to tell me a reason. Give me better information to set you up in the future. And I'd be like, just trust me, it's not for me. And they're like, no, tell me why. So they don't trust me.
Can I just ask, and you'll continue? Is it not help? Imagine you knew for sure they're not going to say anything to the girl that you were dating.
First of all, that matzah doesn't exist. There's no such thing.
Fine. Exactly. But hypothetically, if it did, wouldn't it help them understand oh, I didn't like it because she wasn't smart enough for me or whatever?
In those cases, I think I'm a guy that wants to get married, right? Or this is a single that wants to get married. If they think that is the case, they will tell you the reason. It's a no-brainer. Mm-hmm. In I think a majority of situations, what happens is, let's give an example. A guy comes back from a date. He didn't think the girl was attractive. It happens. I mean, it's never happened to me, but spoiler alert, there's sometimes guys go on dates and don't find the girl attractive. I heard about it a friend once. And he doesn't feel comfortable saying that. Maybe he's not 28. Maybe he's just new into shidduchim. That's not something he feels comfortable expressing
Makes him feel
for whatever reason. And the shadchan pushes him and pushes him and pushes him. So what does he end up doing? He makes something up. She was too frum for me. She was too outgoing. Now we're in a whole messed up world. It's not true. Now she's setting me up with girls that are less frum, more outgoing, all because she pushed me for a reason.
She has a mustache.
It wasn't relevant.
Right.
And if I did tell her she wasn't attractive enough, it wouldn't even help because guys and girls have totally different senses of attraction anyway. Mm-hmm. That's a stupid example, but I think if a guy or girl doesn't want to give you a reason, trust him. He knows that the reason won't be helpful. Mm-hmm. The irony I find is that as much as I've been pushed in that, there have been girls let's say wanted to go out with, and I'll come to the shadchan and say, hey, I know you know this girl. This is the one I wanted. Can you read it? Can you set it up? And I'd be like, that girl's not for you. Why not? Just trust me. I know. So I should trust you complicitly that you know this girl's not for me. But when it comes to me and
the shadchan that tell you trust you that girl is for you.
Yeah,
I've heard that
the trust got to work both ways.
If I got a penny for every single time I heard that, I would probably be a millionaire, at least according to Trump's valuation of pennies.
Interesting. Yeah, it's not perfect. I don't know what it's gonna be in 10 years from now, but I don't think it's gonna be the same as it is today. I think everything that happened kind of worked. It worked. It was great, but things are evolving. There's
I think the great thing that's happening is the worlds are
mishing.
Not mishing, but you spoke with two Lakewood Shadchanim last time about they won't call it a dating app because they can't bring themselves to call it a dating app. But Zug, it's a dating app.
Right.
I hate to break it to everyone.
But it's
they're
AI.
Nechami from the fact this is amazing.
That's what I was gonna say.
They were talking about he's listen, it's amazing because they only know their profiles. They don't know how much money this one has or how chashuv this one has, and they go out. I'm like, Yeah, it's called a dating app. It's existed for 3 decades.
Right.
Like, it's
Correct.
Saw You at Sinai, it's J-Swipe, it's Hinge. It's,
Loop, that's very active.
right.
No,
And
100%.
the other way is also good. Like, these people in the secular dating apps, like non-Jewish dating apps now, are using matchmakers because people in the secular world are saying, like, we want intentional dating. We don't want this culture of, like, meeting a bunch of people, going out with a bunch of people. We want someone with my values that wants to go on an intentional date. So they are being exposed to it, and they're like, wow, this is amazing. Like, I can go on an intentional date with focused.
There's a goal. There's a goal.
Yeah,
there's a goal. With, it's not just.
And we're yelling at them like, yeah, it's called the shidduch system. It's been around for 3 millennia.
Right.
Like, and there's people in Lakewood that need to meet at singles events, and there's people in Scarsdale that need to be set up by a shadchan, personality-wise, because it doesn't fit in boxes, Hashkafa. And I think that's an amazing thing that we are combining those two systems now.
That's cool.
Correct. I was gonna say, like, in 10 years from now, AI will be like everyone's favorite shadchan, like, for sure. They'll be pairing up everyone perfectly. Everything will make sense. You give it the right feedback. You'll feel comfortable. You won't feel awkward saying it. But 100%, like, I agree with what you said earlier, though. Like, not every single time that I feel like a girl isn't for me, is there some words that I can actually tell you that actually make sense. It's a lot about emotion. It's about, attraction is not only about looks. It's also about connection. There's more to it. And to take someone who goes out one date on a girl, with a girl, and sort of like force them to have to give you an answer. Besides the fact, it's like, I grew up in Lakewood, and like, we all know that. But I'm saying, like, all the schools in Lakewood make all the parents sign like they don't have internet in the house. And we all know that's not true. Everyone, 90% of Lakewood,
right now.
Lakewood
That's
Lakewood
crazy. I'll
had,
call my
Lakewood
cousins
had,
right after
but
this.
everyone
You guys
know-
had internet this whole time?
I want to.
Why do you reply to my emails?
I want to do a plug. It's not what we have. It's. I was blown away. We have a hotline number. We get 1,000 calls a day, mainly from Lakewood.
Mainly Pacific Bahram, by the way. They all told me that.
I don't know. Okay, maybe it's that, but I don't know. I'm like, there's definitely people not using. It's a lot more enjoyable to watch. And by the way, thank you for all the people calling in. But like, there are whatever. Either way, side
100%. But the point being is that Lakewood had a system where, they were trying to put a stop to internet, and like every school requires you to sign a letter that you don't have internet in your house. And we all know that isn't true. Most of the families that are signing, either they're balbatish and they're giving enough money to the schools, so they don't care to whatever. At the end of the day, it comes to a point where more and more have it, and it becomes meaningless, that piece of paper. And I find the same thing also. Like, you're going to force singles to start answering questions that they don't feel comfortable answering. They'll just know the cliche answers that you do want to hear as a shadchan, like, make sense to you, and we're just going to give that, and that's just like a copy and paste, and it's not even the real reality. And like, you're right, people, listen, you're trying to set them up for marriage, and you can't trust them to make their own decisions in life. Then fine. If you have a concern that a young kid, 21, that's not ready for dating, maybe speak to his parents. 100%. I also find there's a very big aspect, and I'm going to turn this a little bit. A lot of shadchanim, I think, also do more than what their job description really entails. Like, some of them try to be your dating coach, try to give you, like, be like your advice, like make sure hashkafically you spoke to your rebbe. Like, honestly, a shadchan's job is just to set a couple up and to be like the I don't know, how do you call it, the mid person, the person in between, the in-betweener, and just doing that. It's not so much like if I had a dating coach and a dating coach had a shidduch idea for me, honestly, at this point in life, I would say I would feel more comfortable you give it over to a different shadchan to be the shadchan, because you're my dating coach. You speak to me very intimately. This other girl you just know of, sort of, and it's not really fair to her. Like, why am I getting this like one-sided, conversations and connection with you, and you're giving me advice, and while this other girl is just like, you're just being like this regular standard shadchan, and like, I don't feel it's fair. Like, I feel like you can't be a judge, jury, and executioner in a shidduch system. And the reason why I say that also, I feel it's like a big problem is like shadchanim come on, obviously very frustrated with singles, and singles can obviously be very frustrated with shadchanim. I think if everyone just stuck to their roles, you wouldn't be feeling that way. You wouldn't feel overwhelmed. Like, the fact that someone said that you need to run out while you're with your kids to solve a shidduch, some shidduch dating thing going on. That really shouldn't be the case. That's not what it's not what a shadchan really should be doing. A shadchan should be in between. And if that couple needs to get their help they need to get, so they have the people they're supposed to lean on to. Should be their therapist, their rebbeim, the seminary teachers, whoever's your support system. People have to learn how to deal with that, and not rely on the shadchan to be your support system.
Respectfully agree on one point and disagree on the other point. As someone who probably has had opportunities fall through the cracks because, let's say, a shadchan or a non-shadchan who it's not a priority to them, they're not being paid, they're just a friend setting something up, they don't respond to a text here, they forget to forward a text here and there, and like a real opportunity can fall through the cracks. I have great appreciation for a shadchan that feels the urgency of, even though I'm with my grandkids right now, I have to respond to this, otherwise something might get spoiled. So disagree on that. On the whole, I feel strongly about what you said about the dating coach. Like, for certain guys it's necessary, that like they do need a lot of advice. You're dealing with an opposite gender that thinks differently and functions differently that you've never been exposed to before. I happen to have like an issue when it's for certain things that female shadchanim are giving you advice about, they should not be giving you advice about. If they're trying to sensitize you to how a girl feels, that's very beautiful because you're not a girl, you don't understand that. In the realm of a man trying to be attractive to a female, like the oldest phrase in the book, and there's nothing truer than it. You never ask a fish how to catch a fish. You ask a fisherman how to catch a fish. So advice that female shadchanim are giving to guys on what to do in terms of how to attract a mate and how to be attractive to girls could be absolutely brutal, because the things that girls want to be attracted to and the things that they are evolutionarily or Hashem programmed them to be attracted to are so vastly different and so vastly opposite that if you, and as someone who has done this, listen to it doesn't have to be shocking, a female perspective on what you should do to attract a girl, you will end up womanless for a long time.
I hear that. I think that also boils down to like needs and wants, really. Like people just in general,
Right.
on any side of the spectrum, whichever gender you are, is to, as you start getting older, realizing, what your wants and what your needs are not the same, and make sure that you have those solidified in your brain. Otherwise, you can just keep on dating and you'll never figure out what actually does work for you, because emotionally you're not actually connecting to what you think you need, and it's not, because it's not really what you need. It's just a want that you want to have in a marriage, which might be something as stupid as my husband never smoked a cigarette in his life. Just take an example. I don't know. That's where I think it comes from. But I was just saying regarding, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with getting advice from shadchanim. I just think if they're being a shadchan on a specific idea, I don't think they should be the ones giving advice. And if yes, they should give it over to
Because
somebody
they're
else.
no gay
Right. The same way I wouldn't want my lawyer being my judge. I don't want my shadchan being my
I
my
can see
dating
it going
coach.
both ways. It depends on the person. Sometimes for you, like I'd imagine like they shouldn't, and then there's sometimes people need that extra encouragement. It's sometimes helpful, but sometimes it could be detrimental. So
I hear what you're
Yeah.
saying. I think it's hard sometimes for a shadchan, like given their experience and knowledge, not to be that person. But I agree. It should, like you have a situation, let's say in my world, all the time, where a modern guy or girl comes back from Eretz Yisrael on fire. They think they want a certain lifestyle, and the shadchan has the perspective and the time to be able to say like, this might fizzle out. Like you just got back from whatever seminary after being like wearing short shorts your entire life, and now you want to live in Ramat Eshkol for 15 years on a cold budget. Like you have no idea what that looks like. I do, but I agree with you. They have to have they even having that knowledge, they have to have I don't know what it is, self-awareness or just the resolve to be like, that's not necessary. Like going back to what I was saying before, like if you trust this person to get married and to choose a spouse, like you have to trust what they were on. And I think that is in a way overstepping your bounds. Is like that person is an individual, they have parents to advising them on what they should be looking for. Let's say like your job is in a way to facilitate those needs and wants, even though given your expertise, it might not be best for them. Like I don't know how fair that is. Like that's not what they're asking you to do, really.
Wow. Well, both of you, I appreciate you coming out here. I think this is a topic and an angle that you don't really hear from your perspectives. I mean, maybe you hear like friends here, but from like overall, from like people. Okay, we hear from a lot of people we should hear from all the time. So I think it's cool to like hear each of your perspectives, and I think it's very valuable. So thank you very much for doing this.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Rachel, Nechami, thank you so much for doing this. I want to get into your thoughts and your experience with going through the dating journey. But before that, could each of you give us a little background, where you're from, what kind of upbringing did you have? So let's start with you, Nechami.
I grew up in Detroit. I'm the oldest of 4 kids. I have only brothers. And I went to a pretty yeshivish school growing up, a right-wing Beis Yaakov school. And after that, I went to Meor, went to Israel at seminary. Then I went to college, university, got my undergrad in psychology, my graduate degree, got my MBA in marketing, and then launched my own beauty brand.
Cool. And Rachel, how about you? Where'd you grow up?
Okay, so I'm from Elizabeth, New Jersey. One of 3, the oldest also. I went to Mechala, Berea. I grew up technically modern Orthodox, but never went to like co-ed events. Went to all girls schools and all girl camps. So kind of somewhere in between yeshivish modern Orthodox. And then I went to college. I'm a speech therapist now, and it's great.
And you live at home
I live at home now.
now?
I lived in the city for 7 years, and I actually just moved back like a year ago.
Interesting. Why the move back?
When you're living in the city, it's a constant revolving door of roommates, leases, apartments. Year to year, you don't know what your life is going to look like in terms of where your bed is going to be, who you're going to be living with. Will you have a good roommate? So I really wanted more of that kind of like stability in my life, to know where my bed is going to be year to year, who my roommates are going to be. It's my mom. And yeah, it's nice to have at least like that piece stable.
Okay. And Nechami, you are living in the city.
So it's interesting because I live in the city. I live on the Upper West Side with my grandmother, actually. So I don't have.
Oh, so you have a bit of a different situation.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. I moved to the city because just for dating purposes and business, really, because it was getting hard, the commute back and forth from Detroit to New York all the time. I realized the best situation is just for me to move finally. And yeah, no, it's great. I love living in the city. Has its pros and cons, but
Could you guys take us through your, I guess, introduction to the, I would say, shidduch system or just dating in general?
first of all, I had to like dig deep into the archives of my memory to remember this. But I remember coming back from seminary, and I was 19. I actually officially started dating when I was 20, like the day before I turned 20. So we'll say 20. It was a whole new world, like literally a whole new world for me, because my mom grew up secular on the Upper West Side, and my dad grew up modern Orthodox. So neither of them really knew how to navigate the shidduch system, which is what I was entering. And what I ended up doing was I basically like flew to New York, took my grandmother's car, and started driving around to Shadchanim. Yeah, like in the tri-state area, Lakewood, Muncie.
What do you mean driving around? Like carpool karaoke? Like what?
Like I drove myself
Like to
around to meet
Shadchanim.
Shadchanim.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Like, because your parents were in Detroit.
Right.
And,
And
you had to.
yeah, I had to, get this going.
Yeah.
And then I had my first date. I remember my first date actually was during one of those trips. This shadchan from Muncie, a sweetheart, set me up with this guy. And I remember calling her before the date. I'm like, what do I do? She's like, what do you mean, what do you do? You never went on a date before? And I was like, no. Like my whole life, I went to Betaco. Like we didn't talk to boys. We didn't have social media, even Facebook back then. Like my school was so from that they didn't even tell us not to have it because they assumed we wouldn't have it, So it was just it was a whole new world, as I said before. So
There was definitely a learning curve.
yeah, totally. And then like the whole saying yes, the guys got the resume first and then the girls got it after. And that was just a whole new navigation system for us. And yeah, I was the oldest, so I was the first.
Would you say that's a hard transition going from, I guess, putting it in a box, but like a yeshivish background and then entering into the dating world? Is that, do you think, harder than others have it?
Yes, but I have to say that my parents were very normal in the sense that, so I only have brothers, right? And we had their friends over all the time. We also did Kira like unofficially. So we had single guys coming over. So they never like made sure that I wouldn't talk to guys. It wasn't one of those situations. Like I have a friend who I remember, she has a twin brother and her parents always separated them. So she was like totally shocked when she came into the system because she never was exposed to boys besides for her brother. But so for me, I was exposed to boys, so I knew how to talk to them, but it was just very weird for me to like go on a date and sit one-on-one with a guy and start connecting and talking about like personal things. It was such a weird situation and,
Yeah.
a little uncomfortable.
It's hard. I think in general, the system that we have, and I think there's tremendous value, but when you go on a date, you're like supposed to, are you gonna like find the partner that you're gonna be, and I have the
Right.
best partner ever? Like you're gonna be with
You're
like
either breaking up with them or marrying them,
right.
essentially.
And so like, and you're also
So-
like go have fun, and also
Right.
maybe you'll marry them or not. Like it's such a
And it's
intense.
super formal. Like it starts off very formal. Every step is very formal. You have a shadchan involved at every step. I mean, I'm curious how you guys feel about that. Like how involved shadchanim are, or how involved they aren't. If you want to take that away.
Yeah. It sounds like also based on the last episode I was hearing, the Shadchanim seem like they're stretching themselves really thin. And I think that there are ways to like alleviate that. in my mind, a shadchan is supposed to set up an idea. And what I'm hearing from a lot of shadchanim is that they're coaching people, they're holding them, they're keeping this shidduch together till the very end. The term
Right.
shadchan is so unregulated, right?
Right.
Like, what makes you a shadchan? Like, I have set up over 50 matches this year alone. Am
Wow.
I a
That's
shadchan
a
now?
big
You're
deal.
100%
Yeah.
shadchan.
That's so cool.
You know what
Should've
I'm
been on the
saying?
shadchan episode.
No, they did awesome. But it's so
It's so
interesting
interesting.
to
You have
think
experience
about.
like on both ends. It's very cool.
Yeah, no, I definitely see both sides of like, yeah, being a shadchan, it can be hard and frustrating, and it's hard. You're chasing people down sometimes by accident. But I'm wondering if there's a way to like alleviate that, because also a shadchan doesn't come with a degree. You don't have any mental health coaching. You don't have training per se. Some shadchanim do have that background, and I don't want them to wear themselves thin, but I also want them to be able to like put people together and not have to like not answer messages, just because it's already such a vulnerable process to ask someone for help to find your soulmate for life. Like, you just imagine that someone is gonna be like, Rachel is amazing and I'm gonna marry her, and like that's it. It's so easy. They'll see me on the street just like the Disney movies, and that'll just be it. But it's not like that.
Do you think the system is harder for women, easier?
For women versus
Men.
men. It's a hard question to answer because I'm a woman and not a man, so I can't be completely empathic to what they're going through. What I will say is that in some ways, I find that the system was kind of made for the men.
It's a man's world. Come on.
Yeah,
Just
right.
Say it as it is.
She said it. Okay.
It's a man's world.
So now the thing is, what's interesting that I find is very often it's harder for the girl to get a yes, but then once they're dating, it's often the girls who say no, from what I've heard. I don't know how accurate that data is. From speaking with a lot of friends and just being around, I see that very often the guys get the names first. I know that's the official way that the system works, but there are also a lot of women, including myself, who actually prefer to get the resumes first or the info first. And I really appreciate it when shadchanim listen to me and respect my choices and my preferences, I should say, and send me the name first. And I think that's really nice when they do that, even though the system, quote unquote, officially calls for doing it otherwise, you know? So I think that they both, honestly, like they both have their challenges. Being a man, being a woman, both of them have challenges. And then it's just also, I find that being a woman, you always have to like put yourself, like a guy could like run in the shower and like go on a date, like it could take 10
They
minutes
have
to get
clean their
ready.
cars. It's a big
Like,
deal.
Right?
Yeah.
Like we can't really do that. You know what I'm saying? So those things add a little bit more of a challenge, but also the guy is if you're doing the traditional dating, they're coming in, they're driving in, they're paying for the date. That's exhausting and it's a lot of work. So they have that, you know?
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
There's
pros and
definitely
cons.
emotional and mental
Yes.
pros and cons to both sides. But it's interesting that you brought up who gets the resume first, because I was actually trying to set two people up and they both wanted the resume first. So like I
You
didn't
send it both at the same
I
exact
didn't
time.
have
Yeah.
any resumes. I was trying to get a resume from
Oh,
one
they
person.
wouldn't
I
do
was
that.
trying to get a resume from another person. I couldn't set them up because neither wanted to give me the resume. I'm like, what's going on? Like, I was venting to someone else and I was saying like, it's really difficult to set people up, you know? And I'm curious what you guys have to, say about that.
It is really hard to set people up. It's really hard. And I think that right now, it's so interesting. Okay, so from both a yeshivish and modern Orthodox perspective, a lot of the questions being asked are really superficial. And I don't think that they are
From
actually
who? From the shotgun?
from the shadchan, from the systems, from the websites.
Parents, whatever.
Got it.
right?
Okay. Yeah.
My friend showed her profile through a website to her non-Jewish coworker, and he was just like, why are they so focused on your eye color, your hair color, what political stance you have? He's like, is this how you guys make matches? And in all honesty, sometimes, yeah. Sometimes when the guy is getting the resume first and they're looking for someone that they're attracted to, it really does sound like the criteria is a little bit shopping for more superficial aspects. And I think it's really doing a disservice to like all these like wonderful, well-polished, amazing women of Israel.
I think that's such a great point that we should, if we would focus more on compatibility versus the external factors, like even like what community you come from, socioeconomic stuff, looks, I feel like we could make so many more shidduchim.
Okay, so it's so interesting you say that because so I was at a Shabbos meal where there were men and women present, and the men were describing what they talked to the Shadchanim about and what they're looking for, and I was like, wow, that really sounds like a checklist of looks. And they were like, yeah, but why would I want to have the disadvantage of not using the system if all of my friends are using it like that? Why should I be the only one that's not using the system in that way?
Like it's kind of a snowball effect. Like if everyone else is doing it, then I'll just also do it,
Why
even
wouldn't
though
I also do it?
it's like incorrectly, going about it, right?
When you meet somebody, you meet them as a full person. When you meet someone and, in person, you don't just judge them. You don't even notice their eye color most,
Yeah.
often. So it's very hard to you have a resume and you have a picture sometimes, and it's just very one-dimensional. And I didn't date for very long before I met Yaakov, but even in that short amount of time, it was something that bothered me that, everything was very one-dimensional. You could take a few resumes, put them all together, and they're all, kind of interchangeable sometimes. There's no other way to really do it besides being superficial in a way. Like, because it's a paper and a picture.
Well, there is, because if Shadchanim were to meet singles and talk to them and have a real conversation about what they're truly looking for and just feel their energy, you know what I mean? Like that's a huge
Yeah.
thing. We're not just a piece of paper, as you said.
Right.
We're so multifaceted. So that could be something that might improve the setups in general. And also, just as a side point about the systems, I actually think that as a general thing, the system is actually really great, our system. I think it's the people who make it not so great sometimes and cause the issues, right? Like what Rachel was just saying about that meal that you were at with those guys. So I think that when we have shadchanim or single people who could be a little bit flexible within the system to make it more beautiful and more inclusive and more like less listening to singles versus just doing what they're supposed to do because they think that that's like the system, that those are the rules, that could change things also. And speaking from personal experience, I have had wonderful shadchanim who have done that. I've asked them specific things, like, could you, before you send my information to a guy, could you just give me the name? And they do that, and I appreciate that. Or having conversations about different things, or even reaching out to a guy who I'm interested in because I want to, even though that's not accepted in the system. So those kind of things, I think if we would be like a little more like colorful.
Collaborative.
Yeah.
Flexible,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
I'm curious, as you've been dating for a few years. Do you feel a stigma like, oh, you're whatever the things that they say because you're still looking, like whatever that is? Do you feel that people are judging?
I even feel that stigma though from other older singles than me, which I
Interesting.
find so interesting. Like, let's say, I don't know if you've also seen this, but I'll be on a date with someone that's 8 years older than me, and they'll just look at you and they'll be like, "You're so great. Why are you still single?" And you kind of just want to like turn it back at them and be like, "You're 8 years older than me. How are you still so like?"
Mm,
So it's interesting because I feel like everyone is kind of a little bit judging each other, not only just necessarily the Jewish community or the people in your community or Shadchanim. It's other singles are also doing it. And I think it just comes from just like a lack of emunah. I don't know. I had 6 really close friends get married last year to wonderful, amazing people. It just wasn't the right time. How would they have met before the decade of our dating? It's just so interesting.
It's such an interesting point that you brought up about other singles. So I don't feel that as much. I feel more from the communities at large, people who are married. I've gotten comments like, I mean, you could have been married and had kids by now, so like it's your fault kind of thing. Or just a lot of unsolicited advice or like what's wrong with you, those kind of things which don't feel so great. But at the end of the day, yeah, I mean, we live in a marriage and family-oriented society, community, and it's a beautiful thing. We're like bringing more Jewish neshamos into this world. But at the end of the day, it's gonna have its pros and cons. So also the thing is that sometimes people how do I say this? They kind of narrow you down. I'll go home, right? And I'm not going to give the details, obviously, of the situation, but like I'll meet someone who I haven't seen in a while. Like, oh, what are you up to? How are you? And I tell them, about my brands and like what I'm up to. And then they'll end it off and be like, oh, but we need to get you married.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, first of all, I would love to be married. So thanks for reminding me of like that, but so it's just like, it's not
So,
necessary.
like all they deduced from all your
Right.
accomplishments and everything was, oh, but you're still single.
Exactly. So as single women, we would love to be seen for who we are, like our entire being and what we've accomplished in life and what we've given over to the world,
Right.
instead of just being regulated to our single status.
So when, you first started dating, you're young, and then as you get older, you kind of develop a sense of self. You become wiser. So I'm wondering if you're finding it harder to find someone to connect with somebody.
Great question. Great question.
It's so interesting because I feel like in some ways it's actually easier for me because of all the work that I've done on myself. I have been to therapy, highly encourage others to go. Yeah, I've gotten coaching, like all the stuff, you know what I mean? And dating and being in the shidduch system has really forced me to take a look inside and really build myself up. Even though I've always been like a confident person, it's just different when you're dating. And to build up my self-worth and my value so that I can connect properly with someone else. So I know that some people do it when they're 19 and they get married and they do it together. And other people, like myself, do it when they're single. So for me, it's been easier actually as I've gotten older because also I've been able to hold my own and say no to ideas that, I mean, in a nice way and graciously, obviously.
Sure.
But to ideas that didn't seem appropriate for me. And even when Shadchanim have pushed or people have tried pushing, I have held my ground also graciously. Thank you so much. But he's really doesn't seem like he's for me. I appreciate you thinking of me, all of that. And even just in dating, speaking my mind more. I mean, I think that's the number one thing that I would encourage people who are single to do, which is building yourself up from the inside out so that you can navigate the system effectively. Because navigating the system isn't just the practical aspects in regards to like, networking and meeting shadchanim, matchmakers, whatever you're doing, dating events, but a lot of it is about building yourself up from the inside out. Because here's the thing that I see with my friends, I see with other single people, that sometimes they almost like sacrifice their boundaries and their own self-respect to make other people feel good. And it's very dangerous because you end up just hurting yourself. And basically you're telling yourself that you're not valuable, you're not worth it. So it's so important if you approach dating and you approach meeting people and you approach meeting people in real life, like bumping into people, right? The communities that we were talking about when you might have that might have that stigma, but you have that sense of self-worth, you're able to navigate it so much more effectively and it won't like hurt and you're able to deal with it.
That's such a great answer. Rachel, what about you?
It's very common in the shidduch system that a girl will say yes to a shadchan even when the match is a complete mismatch, just because they're very grateful someone thought of them and they want to be seen positively by a shadchan and thought of again for maybe a different idea. But there's definitely, at least from the girl's perspective, a lot of maybe internal pressure from not having built themselves up, as Nechami's done and hopefully everyone is doing, to say yes to an idea just so that they're thought of at all. There are some girls that go years without a date and they're amazing. Amazing.
How is that possible? Like, how could we let that happen?
Well, I think something that came up on the episode before is that the Shadchanim were open and honest. Like, if we don't think of an idea for you within 24 hours of meeting you, we're going to forget about you. There is an app called Loop that a lot of people are using where singles or other married people set each other up, and there's kind of like a virtual shadchan in between, but it's formal and informal. And they added a piece to the algorithm, which I think is brilliant, where every day when you refresh your homepage, they have 5 random singles that you are not connected to, that you have one degree of connection to that they
Yeah.
bring
I'm on the
up.
app. Are you on the app?
And
yeah,
then,
we downloaded it
Yeah, we
together.
did it.
But
I still get my notification.
I didn't use it so much. You use it more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so
That's so smart.
so something like that, I think a tool like that could be really helpful in refreshing and reminding ourselves of those amazing people that maybe don't stand out as much. I definitely know that also in other systems, like other dating website systems. I know that there are certain people that have blocked access to all the Shadchanim and only have access to one or two Shadchanim that are devoted to them just because they don't want to overwhelm like the top tier yeshiva league people with too many ideas for the fear of losing them. And there are also times where for a lot of these sites that you can pay extra to meet in person with a shadchan. And for certain desirable matches or people, or if guys are really asking about a certain girl often, they'll be like, don't worry about the fee. Just come in. We would love to meet you and set you up. So it's very hurtful when you have a very similar resume and you're roommates and you live together and you're all going together to go meet the shadchan and you paid $180 to go meet them. And some other people, they're just like, oh my gosh, like we have so many ideas for you already. We just want to meet you and get to know you better. Like, don't worry about the fee.
Yeah, that is hard. You know, you're not speaking for everyone. You're more speaking for yourselves now. But what would, from your experience, you say is like the do's and Nechami, I know you like mentioned this, and the don'ts of dealing with you guys, like of like, or girls or women, of like what to say to a single.
For the Shadchanim or for people in general?
I think everything, both, whether it's Shadchanim, it's a meal you're by, it's a family member you haven't seen in
Like,
a long
what are
time.
the taboos?
Like, what do you appreciate and what don't you appreciate?
It's already like a very vulnerable process to be asking for help, right? So when you're being vulnerable and asking for help and somebody points out more flaws and more problems, you really already have this internal sense of like less self-worth because you're not married yet. And then to ask someone for help, they're supposed to be helping, not making it harder. A do would be to be supportive. If you're meeting with someone and you can't think of an idea for them, don't tell them, you're great, but I don't have any ideas for you. I don't see the point in that. I don't think it's constructive. And I think we really have to start building people's like self-esteem because they came to you for help.
Okay, great answer.
Yeah, I love that. I also want to add that, being single is a public struggle. It's interesting because most of the time when we're going through things, right? Like if you're married, you guys like know whatever you're struggling with, like it's no one else's business. Unless if you make it someone else's business. But because we're single, it all of a sudden everyone kind of like knows. And some people feel that they could, I guess, like weigh in, even when it's like not for them to do so. So I would say that is probably my top thing for not doing. Like, it's just not a great idea to ask someone how their dating life is going, or to tell them they're being picky. That Meretz Hashem by use. I don't know how you feel about it. I am not a fan. I actually love when people say, I'll tell you what I do love, is when people say, we should share many simchas. And it's so nice. It's a bracha. We should share many simchas. And it's not a pointed bracha,
It's not directed at you.
Exactly. So I think that's really nice. Yeah, like I remember my brother, who's 5 years younger than me, got married. And there was a lot, I was like in therapy every week that week. And it was just like a lot going on. And I remember sitting at Shabbat Brachos. It was the last Shabbat Brachos. And someone came over to me and was like, I'm ready to start by you. And I was like at my last, like I was about to, yeah.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I was like, Amen. I said, Amen. And she said, I said, I read the Shem by you. And she didn't hear me. So she was like, say Amen. I was like, so I just said it again. So she's like, I'm sure you heard it 75 times. I'll be the 76th time. And I was like, if you're saying that already, then they're like, that is so fine. And then also at the
Did you want
same,
you to like laugh at that line?
right. Like I wasn't sure like what the purpose.
People mean well, but they
Right.
don't do well a lot.
And thank you for saying that. I also want to say that, yes, people
Right.
always, most of the time, have really good intentions. They really, really do. But they should still not say things.
Right,
Like,
right.
I remember also like sitting at Starbucks, like someone texted me from across the room and she's like, honey, are you okay? I turned to my mom and I was like, do I not look okay? Because I thought that I'm having like really, like I'm purposely like projecting really good energy. I'm smiling a lot, you know? And she's like, no, you look great. I'm like, okay, thanks. So then I got another text. I was like, yeah, thanks. And the person was like, I can't wait to make you your own shower brachos, like your own like gluten free, because I can't have wheat, whatever. And I was like, how do I respond to this? Like, this is so awkward. So, like, just like, I know it's uncomfortable when you see someone struggle publicly, but it's not such a great idea to like call attention to that.
Yeah, saying nothing is a
Right.
Yeah.
safer
Sometimes you
thing
just
to
feel
do.
like you want to comfort, and the best thing to do is just to take a step back.
Because it feels I'll tell you why people do it, because there's a misalignment. When things are not aligned, we get nervous. It makes us anxious as people.
Right.
So when you see something that you know that the person wants to get married, right? Assuming they do, and you really wish that you could do something, but you can't, or maybe you could because you're a child, whatever it is, you feel like you have to fix it. But it's okay. Like you don't. It's really okay, you know? And I think that's important.
As we like wind down, what's your advice? It could be for yourself, maybe a few years ago, or for someone else who's single and they're dating and they're going through the journey. What advice would you give?
Wow. I think having a really strong sense of self and making sure you're maintaining your happiness is really key. But just to play off some things that you were saying before, though, I don't know if you would want me to do that or
Sure.
not. First of all, I think it's amazing that you invest in yourself and you're so openly talking about therapy. I find that a lot of people that are going to therapy or going to the dating workshops are not the ones that need it.
Hmm.
I think a lot of times the ones that are actively working on themselves and building that capacity to be able to have an amazing marriage and to be communicative are the ones that are working harder. And they're usually going to therapy and going to dating coaches because of other people that are not investing in themselves.
Mm.
So that's amazing that you're doing that and you're being so open about it, just because I really think it's overlooked. I think a lot of things that we're trying to fix in the shidduch system are band-aids to really broader problems of people having anxieties and fears, and we're not addressing it. We just keep throwing more superficial solutions to really something that's more personal and more core.
Yeah.
That's great. That's a great point.
And that's why I also want, just to piggyback off like another point about Shadchanim running themselves maybe a little thin, because they're doing so many jobs within the system besides just setting up the match. I don't know if there should be like a program or system to make them more well trained, or maybe they should be referring to professionals that can really help behind the scenes, like a relationship coach or a therapist. I know it's costly, but there are other things within the shidduch system right now that are also costly, right? Every time sometimes you meet with a shadchan, it could be a few $100s. There are some people that have shadchanim on retainer. I heard recently someone is charging $11,000 for 3 months to guarantee you a date,
Whoa.
which is
That's
a lot
crazy.
of money. And I think it's
Oh my
also
God.
I think it's also feeding into this like fear-based shidduch system where in order to gain control, the one thing we can control is maybe adding to the fear and adding to the anxiety instead of actually fixing the problem.
Mm.
Creating like a VIP kind of experience.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think the OU just came out with a study, and they looked into moving to New York. What does that look like in the shidduch system? And essentially, all the data showed was that you end up getting more dates. You're equally as sad as somebody living in LA or Chicago, because it's not necessarily like a quality match per se. You're dating a ton, you know a lot of people, but you're still in the same end game result as someone who's living in another country.
Nechami, do you feel that as a person who literally moved from Detroit to
Yeah.
New York? Do you agree with that? I mean, from a personal perspective, in terms of the
Yes,
success rate.
so definitely on a practical level, living in New York instead of flying in, literally, I was flying in once a month and I was staying for about 12 days. So it was exhausting. It was crazy. And I did that for a while. And so now I'm here. It's much easier. You know, I could just like grab a coffee with a guy or whatever, schedule a date for that night instead of the next week, I remember there was actually a funny story because there was a shadchan a family friend of mine, who's just like the old typical style shadchan who like makes up stories to like get guys to come out with you. And I was talking, this is years ago, I was speaking with this guy, and he's like, and we had like a great conversation. He's like, okay, so do you wanna like house tomorrow night? And I was in Detroit, and I'm like, for a date, like to go out, and he's like, yeah, like what else? And I'm like, oh, I was like, I like processed in my mind. I'm like, she must. Okay, I actually live in Detroit. I'm not. He's like, oh, so told me you're in New York, and it was fine. I ended up flying it, whatever. But it was just funny because that doesn't happen now because I'm in New York, so it's much easier. So I also want to piggyback on what Rachel was saying about advice for other single people. You touched on this about being your authentic self. It's so important for dating because at the end of the day, when you're married, you need to be, you're going to be your real self. So just make it happen when you're single. And also go for your passions. Like we all have things we love to do, hobbies, career stuff, whatever it is.
Gitta has a lot of hobbies. Sorry for interrupting. We won't discuss them.
I got very into whittling recently.
It's so
Oh, it's so
interesting.
fun.
It's so fun.
It's like
Yeah.
carving
Your
wood.
calluses, yeah.
Oh my gosh. I love that for you.
It's great.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
but she's following your advice of like going for hobbies.
Right. It doesn't matter like what stage you are, like you
Right.
should be doing. But I know the truth is that I hear from a lot of people, the one question that comes up a lot that I get is, oh my gosh, how did you start your own brand when you're single? And I'm like, what does that supposed to mean? You know what I mean? But they're like, oh, like how were you brave enough to do it with like, I'm like, you just do it because it's something that I wanted to do, it was a passion of mine.
Like,
So
what do the two have to do with each other?
right, but it's funny because a lot of girls, if you think about it, they actually, well, most people get married young, so it's not, but well, not most people, but
A good
People are
chunk,
kind
yeah.
of
A good chunk,
waiting
right.
to start their lives. Like, they wait till they get married to start their lives, which
Exactly.
is such a sad thing,
it's such a sad thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's-
exactly.
you know?
So not waiting and just like jump and also
And it's not their fault. It's not their fault. It's kind of perpetuated just by, that whole value thing that we spoke about. A person's value is we tie it to like their marital status. So starting something like your business and everything comes with confidence. You need that confidence.
yeah, and the guys who like your husband will appreciate that, like there have been men who I've dated and they've told me like it's just like really uncomfortable or even just heard about. I've met them somewhere and they're like, yeah, like I'm just uncomfortable with you being like a public figure or whatever, or like being out there and having your own business, and that's fine.
Right.
That's fine.
It's
but
not a match.
It's just not a
good.
match.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
So people are so nervous of what, so that person is not going to be for you.
I
Right.
think there's something attractive about someone being able to be authentic and be themselves. Because and I think it's one of the problems with dating that like we're all trying to put on the best show, but at the same time, if we were just able to actually be ourselves, then we could say like, oh, that person, because like sometimes we don't really even know what it is, but there's something about someone when you're dating and you're like, that's not really who they are, and you can't even put your finger on it.
Right.
I mean, it could be so subconscious, but like when you factually, yes, okay, I mean, maybe the person's gonna say no. That's great because you both don't want to end up with each other because that person doesn't appreciate that. So there's a lot of truth to it.
Yeah, and also just like protecting your own boundaries when people ask questions. I think it's so that you don't want to answer. It's so important. I'm just like reiterating this because I see so many people just sharing a piece of themselves almost.
Mm.
That it's so hard because you're in this vulnerable position, not like a nebuch, like I'm making it like a nebuch, it's not, but you're in like it's inherently stressful, like being single. It's interesting. I was speaking with a friend of mine, and at that point there were a lot of things going on in my life that were just very stressful, more business related. And she said to me, she's like, "Listen, Nechami, being single is inherently stressful. It just is like the
Mm.
emotional ups and downs, the unknown." Just it's a lot, so I think that we have to do our part to make it as not relaxing but as easy as we can, or the least challenging that we can make it, by protecting ourselves. And there's always respectful ways to respond to people. Because I see on Instagram people are like, oh, what do I say, like what would I respond to someone who says whatever, and like some like funny like sharp response that it's a little mean. I'm not such a fan of those. I don't think those are so nice. Like it's okay. You don't have to make people feel stupid, but like you could still protect yourself, you know?
I anticipate a lot of parents are going to be like watching this episode. What advice would you guys have for parents who have, singles at home and trying to navigate the system as well? They're in it. Again, maybe they're not in the driver's seat or passenger seat, but they're part of the transportation.
I think it's really important to, just from the beginning, well before the shidduch system, to, I think the Rev of Ner Yisrael says this, to make sure that you are raising children that can become independent decision makers.
Mm.
And I find that that's so important because not only should they be just making good decisions throughout their lives, but when it comes to marriage, you want to make sure that you foster that slight independence in them. I still am getting calls in my 30s from prospective husbands' mothers who are looking into me.
Wow.
And to me, it's really a little bit difficult to still be hearing that because I feel like at this point, if you're building your independence and trying to understand what you're looking for, what's not working for you, if you're a growth-oriented person, that at a point it should really kind of be a more independent process, and that people should be going into marriages confidently and not based on fear and pressure. So yeah, so I think the shidduch system really needs to be starting well before the shidduch system. We should really be fostering certain character traits and midos into our children. There's a lot of also something called ghosting going on recently.
Can you explain that for someone who doesn't know what that is?
Yeah, so ghosting is and in the shidduch system, there's a little bit more of a mediator and a go-between, so it's a little harder to kind of get away with this. But even if a friend sets each other up, there's a lot of times where after going on a first date, there will be no communication after that date about whether to continue or not. So you just end up not knowing, are we engaged? Are we still dating? Are we broken up? Do I need a tub of ice cream? Like it's just very unclear and it's very chaotic and it's very unsettling. And it's kind of like, essentially it kind of feels like you have wasted your time, that someone has met you, seen you, and said, you are not worth enough of my time. So just send a quick text to be like, hey, it was so nice meeting you. It was so nice that you came out to meet me. I don't know if I see this moving forward long term, but I would love to keep you in mind. And I've heard people not only say that they think that ghosting is okay, they actually think that it is the proven, amazing, best method to dating.
Yeah,
I'm
who
not
says that?
joking. I was at a shear yesterday. I don't know how it came up, but a bunch of guys were like, yeah, if you go on a first date, like, it's okay to ghost someone after that. Like, that's okay. So I pulled over the rabbi of the shear and I was like, Rabbi, I'm just curious what you think about this topic. A lot of the girls seem to be confused. A lot of the guys seem really confident that they and their friends believe this to be tried and true and amazing method. And they were defending themselves. They were like, listen, you just infer. You get a vibe, you infer. Why would I want a text of rejection like that from someone? It's not worth my time. Just don't reject me. I'll feel better about myself. And everyone will just figure it out. And all of the girls were sitting there with their eyes like popping open,
Like mine right now.
yeah, like you guys were shocked.
Yeah.
This is like very
so crazy.
normal.
Right.
It's becoming more and more normal, regular.
Okay, I mean, I'm glad you're
Whoever
bringing
is
it up. because-
normalizing this, like,
yeah, no, I mean, by talking about it
Yeah.
and calling it out, I think it's helpful. Nechami, what about you? What do you suggest for
For parents?
yeah.
So we listen and we don't judge. Remember that Instagram
Oh.
trend? No, for real. Like, I think it's so important for parents to be there for their kids, listen when I want to cry to you and when I want to talk to you, and not judge my decisions because, as Rachel said, you've raised me to make my own judgments, my own decisions. Just support. I think like support is huge. Having an emotional support system is everything, and that goes for not only parents, but also friends. I think it's also really nice when people say to me, like, how could I support you? Like, what do you want me to say this to? Do you want me to ask you about X, Y, and Z? Would you rather me not? I've had friends do that. I love it. I think it's so sweet and so thoughtful. Yeah, going back to parents, which is your actual question, sorry, is that, yeah, just like to be supportive. And also sometimes when do we need to be defended? to defend us to people when they, say that we're being picky or whatever. I love when my mother respectfully like tells people like she's an adult, knows what she wants, whatever, you know what I mean? So, and I appreciate that. So,
That's great. Nechami, what advice would you have for the Shadchanim listening and want to improve and do better and be better?
okay. So I just want to say that I have had so many wonderful experiences with Shadchanim, and there are always going to be a couple situations.
Sure.
So I think it really comes down to when I think about all my interactions with Shadchanim throughout the years, it comes down to respect. Respecting us as human beings, just like basic kavod habrios, listening. And I was thinking, like, I'm not gonna start like dropping names, but I have seen that Lisa Elephant was on your podcast last week. Love her. She's so respectful. Like I've always had great interactions with her. That's a side point. There have been a couple Shadchanim who, like, okay, so there was one situation where I felt like I really wasn't being listened to. This is a situation that seems to have happened like multiple times with. Well, this is a situation that does happen. So I feel like it's important to say it, which is there was a shadchan who I basically called because I was looking into a guy and I was wondering if he was a match, and she had never met me. And I basically gave her a rundown. I said, listen, like, I'm really busy. I'm sure he's also, let's just not waste anyone's time. So this is what I need, A, B, and C. And she's like, yeah, he has A, B, and C. We go out, the first date. I was like, okay. I felt like maybe he's just really nervous or whatever. Like I felt like he didn't have A, B, and C. So I go out again. Same thing. I called her after and I said, hey, like, thank you so much for setting me up. I'm just a little confused because I had asked you if he has A, B, and C. You said, yeah, but it seems like he really has more of X, Y, and Z. And she's like, oh yeah, I knew you wanted A, B, and C, but I thought X, Y, and Z was good for you. So I was like, that's not respectful. You know what I mean? Like, just like if I ask you a question, I'm an adult. Like, treat us like adults.
Be
And
normal, be transparent.
Be transparent. And also, like, don't judge our decisions. Like, another situation was I went on a date with a guy. This is when I was still flying back and forth from Detroit to New York. And I remember getting in that day and I went on a date right away. Like, I was exhausted. And really nice guy, wonderful, high quality person. He was more religious than me, and I guess he thought that I would be entertained by telling me like Gedolim stories. So that's what happened for over an hour on the first date, and I was really working hard to like focus and whatever. Anyway, point is that I said to the shadchan, he's wonderful, high quality. He's just, I didn't want to tell her because I thought it was like, a little weird, so I didn't want to, tell her what happened. And I just said he's just a little too yeshivish for me. So she calls my mother, leaves her this like outraged voicemail and says, your daughter is clearly looking for a quality B-boy. I only have quality A-boys.
Oh my gosh.
I think I cried that night. I was like very young. That was like one of my first, but whatever. It's fine. You know what I mean? It is what it is. It's not fine, but I'm saying I was fine. I'm fine. I called some of my friends. We all like, they were so angry for me. It took it away. Like I was fine then, it was good. But the point is just like not judging us for our decisions would be the most helpful thing you could do for a single, I would say.
So, Rachel, how do you go about choosing a shadchan?
So first of all, just to piggyback off what Nechami said before, not everyone has earned the right to hear your story and to like carry a little piece of you around with them. It's a very vulnerable process. So just like you wouldn't just go to any therapist or you wouldn't just go to any PT or any general practitioner, ask people, ask your close friends who they like, who they feel supported by. Also, I think people should be looking into shadchanim a little more sometimes because like I said before, the shadchan scene is unregulated and anyone can be a shadchan. So I think that that's one important thing. I think it's also important to keep in mind, sometimes the shadchanim only know 20 minutes more about that guy than you would know if you went on a date with them. They really don't sometimes know the guys they're setting up. They know facts about them. They had a nice encounter with them. They think they're wonderful. But there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes in the shidduch world that are, I think, unknown to the shadchanim and wouldn't come up naturally, right? Because you want to present your best self and you want to present your ideal self, but I don't know if this is taboo to say, but there's a lot of substance abuse right now with a lot of the guys and girls, honestly. People are like very not careful with shomer negia. So that can raise like a few eyebrows behind the scenes that it wouldn't naturally come up
Right.
in a
And it's unfair
conversation.
that like you get set up with someone that they have what to rectify and fix, and that's not the kind of person that you necessarily
Yeah, but
deserve to
it's
really.
also hard on the other end because you start to look picky because
Mm.
that resume is perfect. They're
Oh,
going to
interesting.
shul. They have a good job. They're cute. Why would you say no? And then what do? Do you save face and say, hey, they do X, Y, and Z? Or do you just give a generic answer and just let it be? So do you throw someone under the rug and ruin their chances potentially? What if they do change, like you said? So it's really difficult. And I think it's something that obviously needs to be talked about with Das Torah about what to do in those situations, just because if you just keep saying no to the perfect resume, you look picky
Mm.
and it really hurts your chances. I one time was speaking to a more modern shadchan and she's like, I have the perfect guy for you. And I was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. He was actually married to my friend, so I think it might be a little uncomfortable if we go out. She's like, he's not divorced. And then I started saying some facts about him, like very specific facts, like, is he from here? Is he this? Is he that? Is this his job? She's like, yeah. I was
She
like,
didn't know he was
he never brought it up. They had an hour-long conversation. He didn't bring
It's
it
not
up.
so important.
It's not so important.
It was only for
He
a
lived
few
in another
months.
country
Right.
with a wife.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think it is really important to keep in mind that the shadchanim do get good impressions from people, but they don't know them. So feel comfortable saying no, especially if you have information about them or if you're looking into them.
And on the flip side, shadchanim should respect that and, shouldn't make judgments on the person.
That's very fair.
Yeah. She was really pushing back. She was like, no, he's not divorced. I was like, I was at the wedding.
Oh my God.
I was at the wedding. He definitely was married.
Oh gosh.
Does he
Yeah.
have a twin?
What's your take as it comes to singles and Shabbos and Yom Tov?
So the thing about Shabbos and Yom Tov, or about married, as I said before, in regards to living in a marriage and family-oriented society, it's that certain milestones or certain times of the year or whatever, or Shabbos, time periods that are exciting and fun when you're married could be a time of a more stressful time when you're single. So I just think it would be good if people were like more aware of that and could maybe try to like include their friends. And I happen to have amazing friends and I'm so grateful for them. And I've never been in a situation where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm homeless for Shabbos or whatever, or I'm like alone for Shabbos. But I just think that I see that this is something that could be stressful and it is still something that like hangs over me like, oh, what am I gonna do for Shabbos?
Mhm.
It's something that I'm always thinking about. And it's so nice. I always appreciate when my friends like invite me or people invite me earlier in the week for sure. Because that means that they're thinking of you and it's nice. And just like not in like a nebuch way of like, oh, we feel bad, but it's just nice to be like aware of these things and to realize that Shabbos, like inviting a single person like last minute, you're basically they probably already have plans. If maybe they don't, but if they don't, then they thought they were gonna be alone for Shabbos. So it's just important to think about that.
So I just want to end off with what's, we have this platform over here, and I know you guys are involved with different stuff. So, Nechami, we'll start with you. What's something that you want people to check out?
Thank you. So I have my own beauty brand. It's called Defiance Beauty by Nechami. And it's a natural beauty brand focused on offering visibility to all women, regardless of race, age, ethnicity, religion. You can find us online, defiancebeauty.com, or on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, at Defiance Beauty, BN, like by Nechami, the BN.
Okay, and it's apropos if a young woman's going on a date and she wants to,
Yeah, if you tell,
She
Glam up.
actually gave me a wonderful shade of lipstick before the show. So
and yes, if you message me and tell me that you heard about me through Living L'Chaim,
oh,
then
well,
I'll give you a discount.
Oh,
I'll give you a
oh,
code or
oh,
something
promo.
like that.
okay. Rachel, what about you?
I have nothing to plug. If anyone needs private speech therapy in Elizabeth, New Jersey, it's a really niche clientele. I'm around, but I do think it should be required reading. I just read, Can you do that? Binge read
Oh.
something?
For sure.
Dr. David Lieberman's book on bitachon. I think anyone, any parent, any child in the system, I think it's a really, really incredible book. And it's not long, and it's just packed with information about your relationship with Hashem and relationship with other people, and how to be a more secure person.
That's
Oh.
great. Okay, Rachel,
Recommend it.
Nechami, thank you so much for doing
I'd like to
this.
plug
Thank you for
it.
having me.
Gitta, thank you so much for doing it too.
What a conversation. You know, this one really felt like a podcast. Back and forth conversation, different opinions. If you made it through, thank you. Thank you for listening. Go ahead and leave a comment of your opinions in the comment section. And if you're calling in, you could always send us an email at hi@livinglechaim.com. We know it's complicated, and we know there's thousands of voices here. Obviously, if you haven't yet watched the episode we did with Shadchanim, you could watch that as different perspectives. Now, before I get to my final thoughts, thank you again to our sponsors. We want to thank Belltime, who make the best books. Check out their books for Purim. It will blow your mind. Thanks to Bitbean, the smartest software company in the world. Thanks to Twillery, the comfiest men's clothing for dates or for not going on dates, just, I don't know, living life. And of course, thank you to our friends at To Lease, the best place to get a car. Hands down, give them a call. Now, we all know someone who's looking, a friend, a neighbor, a cousin, a coworker. For some, the journey to finding the person is quick and seamless, but for so many others, it's long, exhausting, and often painful. Now, let me ask you something. If I told you that for every successful shidduch you made, you'd receive $1 million, would you sit down and think of someone? Would you make a call, send a text? Of course you would. But what if I told you that helping two people build a bayis ne'eman isn't just worth $1 million, it's worth creating entire worlds? Because that's exactly what it does. A single introduction can lead to generations of Torah, chesed, kedusha, and happiness. So let's take this seriously. Let's stop assuming someone else will think of them. Sit down, really think, and just do one. Make the call, send the message. The impact could be eternal. Now, to every single person on this journey, some people meet their person effortlessly. Their story flows like a perfect script. But for so many others, their journey's filled with ups and downs, hopes and disappointments, near misses and heartbreaks. If that's your story, know this. You're not alone. Finding the right person isn't just about time. It's about growth, faith, and resilience. It's about staying open even when the world feels closed. It's about believing that your story is still being written and that the right chapter will unfold exactly when it's meant to. But here's the truth. We all need to do better for each other. Dating isn't just an individual journey. It's a communal effort. If you can help with your thoughtfulness, not pressure, be kind, be sensitive, and truly think about the people you're trying to set up. To those still searching, keep going. You're not behind. You're exactly where you're meant to be. Your person's out there. Keep believing. Keep trying. Remember, inspiration's everywhere. L'chaim.
Living L'chaim.